Is he tired?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a special Tuesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
How's everybody doing today? Great to see you all here. We have a nice crowd in here to start the show for a matinee. Very nice crowd for a matinee. 474 strong in the YouTube chat. 301 over on Rumble. Just a little note, little word of advice slash caution. The Rumble technology is acting up today, and so we are not able to see Rumble chats or Rumble rants in our back-end system, neither the Rumble system nor the one that Jake made for us. So we will do our best to catch all of your Rumble rants, but we cannot promise we'll catch all your Rumble rants today because I have to go off of the public chat feed, which I have open on my second monitor. So I will do my best to catch them all, but no promises, no guarantees today. If you got something really important to say that you have to get through to us, you're going to have to give Google, you're going to have to kick up to Google today. If it's super important to you, that because we'll catch all those. But we'll do our best to catch Rumble rants. So you've been warned. You've been warned on Rumble. Fair play. We'll do our best, but the tech is acting up. They did an update on Rumble, I could tell, because now they have the different weight screen, so that usually means there's a glitch or two. I have texted them about it. That's the nice thing about Rumble, is you could text their people, being like, hey, something's wrong. Try and fix it, which I'm sure they'll get to in due time. But just so you know, we don't want any super chatters or Rumble ranters getting their chats lost in the mix and being upset with us. So just so you guys know, that's the deal. But yeah, we got a lot to get to today. Liberalism is back. Liberalism is back.
It's back, baby.
Woke is back. The woke is back.
All right, can you vamp for a second? Because I'm just last minute breaking thing I want to add to the shelf story. I'm literally doing it to the shelf story.
Oh, all right. So Russell's adding a last minute breaking thing. What's breaking?
It's breaking. They're already, well, we'll get there.
Well, tell me what it is.
Apparently they're already like tripling the charges on some items on Temu.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. Yeah. Well, I could. Yeah. I mean, yeah. All right. I could vamp on that. So you have Adidas saying that they're going to increase their prices. They've already come out and said that. Yeah. No, the prices are going to go through the roof. Everything is going to get very, very bad. That's why, and I'll probably talk about this when we do the segment, which is coming up first. But, in Canada, the majority party gets to call the date of an election within 5 years of the last election. So the last election was in September 2021, which means, I guess, at any point, the Liberal Party could call an election day, which gives them an advantage because they can pick the times that are most beneficial to them to have an election. Like if a cataclysmic event happens, say a madman gets elected president of your neighbor to the south and threatens to invade your country, that's a good time for the Liberals to say, okay, you know what? Let's have the election now, because now is when our people are going to be most freaked out at the thought of giving power to a perceived Trump ally. Now, I won't say the flip side.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right. Well, let me finish the thought while I have it. The flip side. I shouldn't say the flip side of it, but in continuation of that thought, things could be even worse by September of 2026. So in other words, there had to be an election in Canada by 2026 because there's a 5-year deadline. So you say, well, they picked now because now there's a lot of anti-Trump sentiment. I think there's going to be a lot more anti-Trump sentiment by this time next year at the rate things are going because of the economic impact of these tariffs, first and foremost, in that context. But anyway, let's get to it.
Well, I was saying, because by the time I go back to New York, I'll probably have been out of town for about a month and a half. I think I'll probably extend my stay here to the end of May. It's going to be like sci-fi, man. People are going to be having shootouts over mascara at Dwayne Reed by the time I go back.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I left. It was all normal. Seeing Glenn Ross.
Yeah,
everything's very pleasant. I'm gonna come back to fucking Mad Max down there.
Yeah, not good.
Not good. Believe me, not good. So our friends to the north, very close to my north right now. I can get to Canada in like 20 minutes right now. I should go over there and do on the street interviews, but I'm afraid I'm going to get arrested. But we'll get to that with Carney. All right, Canada. Hey, man, things were not looking good for the Liberals. The Liberals were not good stewards of Canada, according to almost anyone's account, except very much like in America, rich boomers who got theirs, like the Liberal Party. But nobody else really. Look at this. Economic growth, 0.5%, just lagging behind everybody else under Trudeau's leadership over the last 10 years. House prices are a big thing there by some measures. It is the most overvalued housing market in the world. In the world. You see how hard it's become to buy a house in America? And that's just a little divergence on income and house prices. Look at Canada.
No, I looked up housing in Canada because, some of I'm kind of shopping myself around. And so I just out of curiosity checked the Canada. I'm like, damn, this is worse than here. Way worse than here.
Look at this. It's vertical. It's vertical, straight line, and income pretty flat, very much like here. So, hey, man, this combination of factors, growing dissatisfaction, and after many, many, many years in office, Obama gal pal Justin Trudeau announced a shock resignation in January, and shortly after they announced this election. Now, coming out of Trump's victory, hey, man, they were getting buried. They were going to get trounced. Look at this, 42-23, 40-26, 48-17. Absolutely, the Liberals were going to get buried.
Yep.
And
it's counterintuitive, sorry, but in Canada, the blue is the Conservatives, red is the Liberals. It's the opposite of here. So it makes it hard to follow the charts. Right. But the blue is the Conservatives.
All right. Yeah, good point, Charles. So what happened? What happened? Well, this probably had something to do with swinging the electorate.
Remember, with Canada, we don't need their cars, we don't need their lumber, we don't need their energy, we don't need anything from Canada. And yet it costs us $200 billion a year in subsidy to keep Canada afloat. So when I say they should be a state, I mean that. I really mean that. Because we can't be expected to carry a country that is right next to us on our border. It would be a great state. It would be a cherished state. The taxes for Canadian citizens would go down in less than half. They don't spend money on military because they think we're going to protect them. There are many things that they do, like icebreakers. They want us to provide icebreakers for them. Oh, that's wonderful. So the Canada, they're very tough traders too. I want to just tell you, of all the people, they're tough traders. They trade very tough. And, the expression I use is some people don't have the card.
I was negotiating a Mountie came and beat up my niece.
Yeah.
On the playground. They said next time it's going to be worse. You buy this maple syrup. So I had to look this up because when I first saw this, I thought it was a parody post. I had to go to his Truth Social to make sure this was real. This was the day of the election. Trump truths this out. Good luck to the great people of Canada. Elect the man who has the strength and wisdom to cut your taxes in half, increase your military power for free to the highest level in the world, have your car, steel, aluminum, lumber, energy, and all other businesses quadruple in size with zero tariffs or taxes. If Canada becomes the cherished 21st state of the United States of America, no more artificially drawn line from many years ago. Look how he has no idea the history of North America. Look how beautiful this landmass would be. Free access with no border. All positives with no negatives. It was meant to be. America can no longer subsidize Canada with the hundreds of billions of dollars a year that we have been spending in the past. It makes no sense unless Canada is a state. Now, just briefly, Trump, we have often observed the idea that he was a good businessman and a bad politician. That's Keaton's formulation is actually reversed. He's actually a good politician and a bad businessman. Casinos are considered bankruptcy proof. He's bankrupted multiple casinos, but he's a good politician. So you have to assume that he knows that that is going to be counterproductive, as has most of his rhetoric towards Canada. Now, we did a B part of this segment getting into the question of whether this has all been an op and he actually wanted Carney. I have a hard time seeing how he didn't. Now, alternate theory, he's just an asshole and he figured he's going to lose anyway and he decided to go troll that way. The theory I would give the least credence to is that he's so arrogant that he still thinks he could push it through. I don't believe that. That doesn't jive with the good politician part, if you believe indeed that he's
well, notice he didn't say Polyev by name. He didn't say vote for the conservatives. He just gave a sort of general guidance.
Maybe he meant Carney.
Right? Yeah, who knows? Well, that's what I mean. Like, he didn't actually go out and say who to vote for.
Yeah. I mean, he clearly implied the conservative. So, moving along. According to Matt McDermott, it's pretty obvious. I think it's pretty obvious to anybody, whether you like Trump or you don't like Trump, that he single-handedly swung the Canadian election by 25 to 30 points to get a victory for the despised Liberal Party. The impact of an unpopular American president on a foreign election is stunning. We've never seen anything like the seismic political shift Trump triggered in Canada to deliver a stunning Liberal win. Trump's toxicity is rewriting global politics. So this is just a little bit of what Carney had to say in his victory speech.
See every day what the politics of slogans and anger and chaos are doing south of the border. They are dividing and they are weakening the Americans. And that is why, that is what, they are not united anymore. United in name only.
And a Duncan on
and
us
now the Americans want our strength. They want our resources, our water, our land. They want our country.
I'd like some of your housing. If your housing were a little cheaper. If your housing was cheaper, I'd go grab some of your housing.
There's your answer. Because Canada is not America. Canada is not America. Thank God. America is a melting pot. Look around this room. We're all Canadians. We're all Canadians. We're all distinct. We're all Canadians. Canada is our mosaic. It is true that President Trump has betrayed Canada. He's betrayed Canada. And he has ruptured the global economy. Our old relationship with the United States is over, unfortunately.
Wow.
Okay.
What a sight.
So some really remarkable results, not the least of which is Bruce Fanjoy, an unknown neophyte, opposed the conservative candidate for prime minister. You can't defeat Pierre. Watch me. Well, hey, man, pretty convincing victory, 50-46. Not only did Pierre, I want to say it my Warner Brothers perverted skunk way.
Yeah.
Pierre Poilievre.
Pierre Pepe Le Pew Poilievre.
Yeah, Pierre Poilievre lost by 4 points his own seat, much less to become the next prime minister. So BBC put together how they voted in charts. The Liberals have 168. Now they need 172 for the majority. Last I heard, it looked like they were going to fall a little short of that. So they're going to wind up having to work with one of the or all of the very weakened third parties. That's part of the story here. Actually, the Conservatives picked up seats from dissolution of parliament. They had 120. They're coming out of this with 144 because the NDP, the Quebec Party, and the Green Party completely collapsed. They actually, both the Liberal and Conservative Party, because of that, gained vote share.
Yep.
The Liberals gained 10.9. The Conservatives gained 7.7. As you can see, all at third parties' expense, particularly the NDP, 11.6 drop.
Well, yeah, the lefties rallied behind the Libs because they thought it was an emergency. So that's what happened.
But they didn't necessarily. This is the thing.
Well, some of the seats went to the Conservatives. Yeah,
some
there was some horseshoe.
The majority. Yeah. The majority of NDP flips went to Conservatives. Jagmeet Singh, who was the leader of NDP, also lost his seat with his fellow loser. So here's a kind of common take on it. It's not that the vast majority of Canada have been happy with how things have been the last 8 to 10 years. It's that they knew things would get worse, not better, with a conservative government. Hence why the NDP have lost 20 seats. Welcome to strategic voting, which somebody responded, of the 17 seats the NDP lost, 13 went conservative. Very strategic. So the conventional wisdom that all the NDP voters voted Lib does not seem to really hold up in reality. And we'll get into the reason why a little later in the segment. So if you look at the overall vote share, Liberals got 43.5. Conservatives not that far behind, 41.4. The seat share, the way that translates, though, is a bigger gap. The Liberals will have 49 to the Conservatives 42, based on the estimate right now. The Bloc Québécois, apologies for my pronunciation in advance, seems like they're going to be the biggest factor in terms of third parties that they might have to form a coalition with if they fall short of 172, which, as I say, the latest reporting looks like they'll narrowly miss that. Now, a lot of consternation from some Canadians who really did not want to wake up to this. There's a new PM and new. Do they call it a first lady up there? Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, I don't know what they call it.
But they might not even have a name for it. So here's a little bit of the complications. It's not as simple as everyone got mad at Trump and the Libs won in a landslide. Like, yes, that did happen, but you can't just reverse the level of discontent there was with the Liberal Party in a few months. So there are signs of that if you dig into some of the results. So the election results have highlighted divisions in Canada that could pose a challenge for Carney. Notably, the Liberals are shut out of Alberta and Saskatchewan, oil-rich and gas-rich prairie provinces where a sense of alienation from the center of power in Ottawa has long festered. And if you look at the chart, yeah, I mean, Alberta, Saskatchewan, I think, there's one one Liberal seat there, two in Alberta. Very similar to our own politics. It's like the southern states of Canada, I suppose. Meanwhile, Poilievre's message, which relentlessly focused on cost of living issues, especially on housing affordability, resonated with many young people. Support for the Conservatives outpaced Liberals by 44% to 31.2 among 18 to 34-year-olds, a Nanos poll on 25th April indicated. The divide was more stark among younger men. You know, you say you're not the United States, but you sound a lot like the United States in many ways. Separately, Abacus data polling found that about 18% of 18 to 29-year-olds were worried about Trump. That jumped to 45% for voters over 60, suggesting a polarization on issues between generations. So it does seem like a lot of the kind of demographic differences that we've seen around Trump was going on around the conservatives up there, particularly Poilievre emphasized the impossibility for young people of getting housing, stagnant wages, whereas the liberals cannot credibly run on that because they presided over that economic destruction across the last couple of decades. When you combine that with the fact that Carney is literally a deep state central banker type, was in charge of the central bank in Canada and also in charge of the central bank in England during Brexit. So you couldn't find a better World Economic Forum proxy than Carney. So yeah, man. I mean, it was real. It looks like it was really the boomers that tipped it. But the reason that the conservatives were going to win is that the liberals have been so bad that even enough of the boomers peeled away to give the liberals a wide lead as of November. But Trump, with his rhetoric, his antics, and his behavior, we're going to get into this in the B part of this segment. It's hard to imagine that not being the intention, Carney becoming the prime minister. Like, how could you possibly think that you're not going to hurt the conservative candidate by talking about making their autonomous nation a state?
Yeah, I mean, Trump revived. I don't know if it. I mean, I shouldn't say revived. I don't know that it ever existed. I'm not a Canadian historian, but I've never seen the Canadians so into Canada as I have these past few months. And what Carney, World Economic Forum stooge or not, he ran an anti-American campaign. I mean, we just saw him in his speech say, "Hey, our relationship is not the same anymore. That those days are over." He said that on the campaign trail too. That appeals to people when you have a president of the United States get elected and out of nowhere comes in so incredibly hostile to your state, saying he wants to annex it, saying he wants to tariff it. Of course. I mean, it's an obvious result, and it's not a dominant victory for the liberals, but it's dominant compared to what it looked like. They were set to lose this by 20 points. And
right.
And the fact
20
that
to 30.
Yeah. And the fact that you had this reversal in this shorter period of time just shows that Trump created what in their mind constituted an emergency situation where the status quo beats whatever we have going down. We have going on down here. The United States is like the kid who steps in a pile of shit on the playground, and all the other kids say, "Oh, there's a pile of shit over there. We better stay away from there." That's us. We stepped in the pile of shit, and now the rest of the world is saying, what's going on over there? We better not let that happen here. And they're doing what they can to avoid it, even if it means doubling down on a very unpopular status quo. Sometimes politics is complicated. Sometimes politics is simple. In this case, the lesson of this is quite simple. You can't be this horrible. You just can't be this bad. Right. When you're this bad, you make people not want to take a chance on you. Now, we spent the, first few years of our show here talking about how bad Joe Biden was. And Joe Biden was really terrible enough to the point where the country did take a chance on Trump. But now you see Trump in 100 days drove his approval rating down to where Biden left off. You know what I mean? In 100 days. Not in 4 years. In 100 days. And so you just can't be this horrible. Like, you know, people want to cope. I saw a lot of cope on X about, I advised, Viva Frey was, I advise, because he's Canadian, I advised the Polyev campaign to engage more with new media and to tap more into the young men the way Trump did. And, they ignored my advice and now you reap what you sow. Okay, listen, man, that to me is cope. What happened here is he was in a position to win in a landslide. Donald Trump came along and proved how toxic that brand of politics is, and enough people wanted nothing to do with it to the point where they put the liberals back in charge. Justin Trudeau was crawling out of there with his tail between his legs. Yep. They were in shambles. Yep. They were in shambles. They were gone. They were a non-factor. Yep. And now here they are.
They put him in a bunker. You haven't seen this guy.
No, you haven't seen him. You haven't seen him. He was the liberal darling 10 years ago as a global celebrity. Yeah. He leaves with his tail between his legs. They're on track for a crushing defeat no matter when they called the election. They could have called it September of 2026. On the trajectory that things were on, the conservatives were poised not just to win, but to clean up. No, not now. And the idea of Canada becoming a state just gets funnier and funnier. First of all, I love how Trump continuously refers to the border between Canada and the U.S. as an artificial line. We need to militarize the southern border. That's got to be a steel trap. But the northern border, that's an artificial line. Second, Canada has a population of 40 million people, which is about the population of the state of California, which is by far the largest state by population in the United States. California has 54 electoral college votes, 52 representatives in Congress. So if you make Canada a state, given the results of this election, what you're likely doing is giving the Democrats permanent power in the House and probably in the presidency, because you're adding 54 electoral votes to almost certainly the Democrat column. It'd be very hard for Republicans to win an election.
We're way ahead of you.
Yeah.
It'll be like, what do they call it? We're going to annex them.
We're going to annex them. It'll be like Puerto Rico. They don't get to vote.
It'll be like Puerto Rico, only no vote. No vote at all.
Yeah, no votes at all.
It'll be more like the West Bank, really.
Yeah, right, exactly. It'll be like Judea and Samaria. They'll live like Palestinians in the West Bank. Yeah. So completely just absurd and thoughtless. Which that's the most benign interpretation. And of course, the suspicions are that this was planned in advance, which I guess we will get to in the next piece.
Yes. Should we just go on?
Yeah, let's just roll right in. In fact, hold on. Let me take some Rumble rants first, since this is giving me a bit of an issue. So Nocturnal Human says 2025. Do it. Thanks, Nocturnal Human. Hillary Hinton says, dirtbags, it sure is fortunate that Timothy McVeigh's getaway car had no license plate. It's almost like he was supposed to get pulled over. Sorry about the dirtbags thing. Thank you. Kit's Corner says, in Pierre Poilievre's riding, conservative leader, 91 candidates are running to split the vote, hoping you would lose his seat. He did by the split of hair. Pure election corruption. Oh, George made it rain. Hey, thanks, Oh, George. Oh, George gifted 10 subscriptions on Rumble, and I believe they were all claimed. Oh, wow. Everybody's thanking Oh, George. Wow. George making it rain. I didn't even know you could do that. Our resident-based Israeli dissident. Oh, George lives in Haifa, by the way. He is an Israeli, so you accepted a gift from an Israeli, but he's a based one. One of few, holding down the based dissident contingent. The base Israeli dissident contingent.
Does he have a shark in his profile pic?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, that looks like all of the Rumble rants. Like I said, I apologize. We shouldn't miss any because now I have it. I have the line. So no promises, but we're looking okay. Brent Yoendo says, any chance the Settlers will be the next watch party? Well, we are going to cover that film tomorrow. We have a patron show tomorrow, by the way, folks. So tomorrow night, 7 or 8 o'clock, we'll figure out a start time depending on the length of content. But make sure you sign up, or we'll send the email out.
Make it 8 because I'm going to drive to Rochester tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We'll make it 8. I'm thinking 8 o'clock probably works better for me too. So yeah, 8 o'clock. Boom. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. We'll definitely cover that. We'll show some scenes from it. But yeah, I am looking forward to talking about that. Michael Castillo says, son of former Arizona guard Gilbert Arenas has come out of a coma after crashing his Tesla Cybertruck into a tree. Jesus. He was to start as a freshman guard at USC. Oh, that's horrible. That is terrible. That is a terrible story. All right, let's go on.
I thought those things were indestructible.
Yeah, not good. Believe me, not good.
All right, setting it up. Mark
Yep.
Carney has buried the competition in the race for Canada Prime Minister, largely, pretty much exclusively due to a huge assist from our own president. So this is a little of what Mark Carney said at his acceptance speech.
Warning for months. America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never ever happen. But we also must recognize the reality that our world has fundamentally changed.
Now, Mark Carney does not represent a different kind of liberal. He does not represent a sea change. He, in many respects, represents everything that many of us who are on the left, who believe fiercely in civil liberties, have been speaking out against among the liberal class. And this is where, at times, there's been overlap between populist left and populist right, between people like ourselves, people like Glenn Greenwald have sometimes had the same takes as Candace Owens or Matt Walsh when you're talking about things like internet censorship. Now, here's Mark Carney just a little over a week ago talking about what his plans will be for the internet.
One of the issues we're dealing with, there's many serious issues that we're dealing with respect to crimes of violence, conjugal violence, drugs, fentanyl, others. But one of them is with respect to really just the sea of misogyny, anti-Semitism, hatred, conspiracy theories, this sort of pollution that's online that washes over our virtual borders from the United States. And that's a mild version of that. That's fine. I can take the conspiracy theory and all that. But the more serious things is when it affects how people behave in our society. When Canadians are threatened going to their community centers or their places of worship or their schools, or God forbid, when it affects our children. So my government, if we are elected, will be taking action.
Okay. Now, J.D. Vance went to Europe and spoke against the Digital Services Act about a month ago, very shortly after Trump took office, and a lot of people made a lot out of that. We pointed out that he completely omitted the horrible suppression of pro-Palestine journalism and protest in Europe, completely ignored it. What Carney's describing here is the continuing to go in this direction, where you have an alliance of nations that, under the premise of protecting safety and protecting feelings, frankly, are going to increasingly ratchet up pressure on free speech. Now, before Trump actually got elected, there was almost no other game in town you could go to but to go to a kind of populist right rhetoric that was speaking out against this. Now, even before Trump got elected, they made themselves very clear that there was a Zionist exception to all of this. In some ways, you got to say, all right, yes, Trump has taken some of that with deporting students and so on to a level I can't imagine a Harris administration would have taken it to, although who knows? You know, they sent the cops in very happily to crackheads at Columbia. They were doing a lot to intimidate and suppress students. So maybe it would have gotten there, probably not in the first 100 days. We'll never really know. But we can't forget, this is the liberal agenda. The liberal agenda is they want to suppress that anti-Zionist speech, and they want to suppress a whole panoply of other subjects. Now, you got to ask yourself, you got to wonder, Well, so suppose there is really this deep state, right? Suppose there are these intelligence services that work to control the drift of society and to manufacture consent for their agenda. Well, clearly having Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's face on this "you'll own nothing and be happy" New World Order agenda, that wasn't selling it, because Trump's base, a lot of them are armed. It was clearly going to get really ugly if you kept trying to push that agenda past that base. But if you put a guy like Trump in there, you could push this agenda and get that base to support it, cheer for it. You could manipulate them into bringing it about, right? So you look at who Mark Carney is, and okay, I'm not the conspiracy theorist. I'm not the one who gave a 9/11 mobile to his newborn. That's Keaton. But I am just saying, it's pretty funny that this guy has no political experience. He just came out of nowhere. At the start of the year, Carney was a former central banker. Well, that doesn't scream deep state at all. With no experience as a politician. By mid-March, he was being sworn in as prime minister, the first to have never held elected public office before, after a resounding win in the Liberal leadership race. Now he's faced the Canadian electorate as a first-time campaigner, won an Ottawa area seat in the House of Commons, and steered his party to an unlikely victory. Carney had long flirted with entering Canadian politics, and he seized his moment swooping in after former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's sudden resignation in January. Okay, all right. So, maybe I'm a little fucked up here. But again, suppose you want to manipulate the world into accepting digital currency, into accepting mass surveillance. You couldn't really do any better than to have Donald Trump come in and instigate a unknown level of nationalism in Canada with just the most deranged, bizarre rhetoric about turning it into a state. You reboost the Liberals, who just coincidentally have just given the leadership of their faction to a central banker with no political experience, who's never campaigned for anything before, who all of a sudden gets elected partly on a platform of censoring speech at the same exact time that you have Doge rifling through the government's database to create an AI-driven surveillance system. Now, if you're a deep state actor, I think you would call that a win, right? You would call that a win. Would you call that winning? But it gets better. So, as we mentioned in the previous segment, before Trump started talking about Canada as the 51st state, the polling was insanely stacked in favor of the Conservatives. The Blues are the Conservatives there, by the way. 42-23, 48-17. Trump single-handedly flipped that. Now, if you believe that Trump is a smart guy and he's a good politician, how do you explain that? It's so, anyone could have told you that what he did was about the only way the Liberals could have won. So then you have to wonder, well, did they want the Conservatives to win? Or did they want this central banker who came out of nowhere, who was installed as the head of the Liberal Party, to actually win in order to continue the globalist agenda, which Trump in many ways is furthering from the other side and making it palatable to a group that might resist it with different branding? Look at the evolution. Look at how Trump was talking. If the European Union works with Canada in order to do economic harm to the USA, large-scale tariffs far larger than currently planned will be placed on them both in order to protect the best friend that each of those two countries ever had. And yet, very shortly after that, he had a phone call with Mark Carney. This is what he said when they asked him about it.
We had a very good conversation. Mark called me today at 10 o'clock.
Mark.
We put out a statement.
Mark
we had a
called
very
him.
Good talk. He's going through an election. now, and we'll see what happens. But we have Liberation Day, as you know, on April 2nd, and I'm not referring to Canada, but many countries have taken advantage of us, the likes of which nobody even thought was possible for many, many decades, And, that has to stop. We're going to end up with a very good relationship with Canada and a lot of the other countries. Some we probably won't. It won't be so pleasant. But I think most countries are agreeing with me. They actually, many of them have actually apologized. They said, look, we have taken advantage. And
Yeah, that happened.
They say, yeah, we're sorry, we took advantage.
The people that stood, in this case, I can say the men, because...
And also,
they've
we've
been
all
men,
seen your
haven't
wife
they?
naked.
But the men that sat right there and
All of
behind
us.
the Resolute desk, mostly the Resolute desk, I don't know if you know, you have a choice of 7 desks. The Resolute is the one I like.
You can't come off the desk.
Some chose other ones, but they sat right behind a desk right in this location.
Yes, we understand.
And they let our country be hurt very badly, but I didn't do that. But we had a very good talk, the Prime Minister and myself, and I think things are going to work out very well between Canada and the United States.
Very different tone. And this was, I think, the same day. I just finished speaking with Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada. Now, look at the wording he uses. It was an extremely productive call. We agree on many things and will be meeting immediately after Canada's upcoming election to work on elements of politics, business, and all other factors. And that will end up being great for both the United States of America and Canada. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, that's what they call giving away the game, right? Why are you going to be talking to him after the election if you're pulling for the other guy? Like, why are you putting that out there? That, my interpretation, of course, I don't know. I'm not in Trump's head, thank God. That looks like a moment of unintentional honesty about how this was going to go and how it was expected to go. As I said in the last segment, I cannot imagine a man who wanted the conservative to win would put this out the day of the election. If Canada becomes the cherished 51st state of the United States of America, no more artificially drawn line from many years ago. And then he held forth on Queen Anne's War, but that wasn't included in here. So yeah, that's weird. If you actually don't want Carney to win, to put something like that out there the day of the election. And hey, man, at the end of the day, overall vote count, it wasn't a blowout. What was it, like 2.5 points?
Yeah, it was fairly close.
Like it wasn't a total blowout. So it's not like, well, things like this didn't make any difference. It might have. You don't know.
Well, yeah, and it's also not as though he were just reacting to an inevitability. Like, if Carney were up by 20 points, he would say, yeah, we're going to talk after the election because he's on track to win. It was pretty like it could have gone either way yesterday. The odds were in the Liberals' favor, but it wasn't a done deal. It was about 75% that the Liberals would win, and they did, but 75% is wrong 1 out of every 4 times. So there's a chance the other guy could have won. Yeah.
Yes.
So why are you acting like it's a foregone conclusion that Carney's going to win a month out?
Listen, we at the time, we didn't really indulge this. More and more, we are among those who are like, yeah, McDonald's ketchup, blood. How are you going to tell the difference on an ear? Yeah. Where's the scar?
Yeah.
Where's the scar? Trump and Carney are working together to roll out the digital infrastructure. Carney bailed out Trump's family member. There's so much you must have missed or you've bought into a narrative. Now, honestly, I came across this doing the research for the overall Canada election results. I was like, what's he talking about with his family? Well, actually, there's a there. Carney's ex-company, Brookfield, has deep financial ties with the Trump family. So we'll just read through some of this. Canadian investment firm Brookfield, formerly chaired by Liberal leader Mark Carney, has close business ties to the Trump family. In 2018, Brookfield agreed to lease a New York City property from Jared Kushner, U.S. President Donald Trump's son-in-law. The lease was for a 99-year, billion-dollar agreement which saw the company forking over the full U.S. $1.1 billion up front instead of paying it off annually. Kushner served as the White House senior advisor to Trump during the time of the Brookfield deal and also dealt with the administration's relationship to the Middle East, visiting Qatar to discuss its blockade against the U.S., which was eventually lifted. Brookfield's second largest stakeholder during this time was the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Qatar, which helped to finance the billion-dollar deal. No, nothing to see there. The deal was brokered in 2018 before Carney became chair of Brookfield and at a time when Kushner's family was in debt to repay $1.2 billion in mortgage payments by February 2019. So, okay, setting aside Carney, it sounds like he got a big payoff from Qatar. Things were promised that we don't have public record of. For whatever reason, Qatar bailed out Kushner, who was in financial hot water at the same exact time that he was negotiating with Qatar. Carney and Trump now appear to be on good footing with plans to meet immediately after the election to work on elements of politics, business, and all other factors, noted the U.S. president. Some speculate that their positive relationship could be tied to Carney's help in stonewalling the U.S. Senate Finance Committee's investigation into the Brookfield-Kushner deal regarding the $1.1 billion check. Information was requested of Brookfield in 2022 while Carney was at the helm by the committee, but it was never handed over. Committee Chairman Senator Ron Wyden sent a letter that year to Brookfield's Bay Street office in Toronto requesting, quote, detailed information from Brookfield to understand the process by which Brookfield paid Kushner companies $1.2 billion in 2018 to sign a 99-year lease on the 666 Fifth Avenue property in Manhattan. I know that building. Everyone knows that building. It's got big 666 on top. However, Brookfield, chaired by Carney, twice declined to provide the committee this information, instead stonewalling on whether it intentionally misled the public on its decision to use the Qatari-backed BPY to invest in a Kushner property, despite statements indicating it would avoid doing so due to conflicts of interest. The committee was seeking answers to specific questions regarding, quote, whether Brookfield was aware that members of the Kushner family were holding discussions with Qatari government officials and businessmen. Additionally, the senators wanted to know whether the Qatari Investment Authority or the Qatari government were made aware that Brookfield was negotiating with Kushner companies regarding the transaction. True North contacted the Prime Minister's office and the Liberal Party of Canada to request comment on the situation, but did not receive a response. Now, at another place in the article, it mentions that Carney actually still has, I believe the number was $6.6 billion worth of financial interest in Brookfield. Now, that could account for why he clearly feels very comfortable with this guy. You know, we know how Trump talks about people that he has a contempt for,
Right.
doesn't
exactly.
like, right? Yeah, I spoke to Mark. We had a very good conversation. Well, you know, they did some kind of dirty deal through his financial services firm on behalf of Kushner and Qatar. And then under Carney, now Carney wasn't there at that time, but under Carney, they did not release the requested evidence to the Senate. So he did a solid for the Trump family. So why are we assuming Trump did not want him to win? So somebody here says, and you know, you're getting this from some of the more serious MAGA people, you know, the ones who are not so much Trump knee pad wearers, who are more independent. This win isn't about politics. It's about finance. Carney fits because he's more on board with the current global financial reset that is occurring, whether you're aware or not. Pierre Poilievre would have been a fine head of state for Canada, but he doesn't fit like Carney with respect to the implementation of the digital assets infrastructure that's being rolled out in real time. New world order of global finance is loading, and the world will look a lot different by 2030. LOL, there's another commenter voted for this. LOL, Canada bending the knee to another WEF puppet isn't momentum, it's weakness. We are not Canada. We are the United States of America. So, you know, you can see these are coming from conservative accounts. These are people who like Pierre Poilievre, right? As we like to call him. I like to call him anyway. So, yeah, look, I'm not the conspiracy theorist. That's more Keaton. He's the one who showed how they got the Pentagon cartoon to his twins.
Yeah.
But
I mean, they know that jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams. They
know
that.
That was so weird. I went there for Thanksgiving. I was like, they're so young to know something like
I didn't even have to tell them that. They know.
They're like, Russ, do you know? Do you know that jet fuel doesn't melt steel?
Yeah.
But hey, if you had this global agenda, which I personally agree that there is such a thing, and that there are shadowy cross-national intelligence services working towards a certain agenda. And particularly, you know, who really most strongly believes that probably of any sector in society? Trump's base. Okay, so ask yourself, it clearly wasn't going to work out with Biden and Harris because there was too much backlash from Trump's base, from a lot of the people who make up Trump's base. You install Trump there, and now you can use him to reinvigorate the neoliberal world order. You make it look good by comparison, while at the same exact time, you have Trump setting up the United States to move over to digital currency and mass surveillance via AI. And you have Doge running around breaking every government agency that might get in the way, including the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. If you're the deep state, how did you lose by Trump winning? You would have lost by Biden and Harris winning, because that would have continued the momentum towards the backlash. Trump winning just put all that critical examination of what's underlying all these processes to bed. Except, as I pointed out, those were both clearly conservative accounts. Some people are thinking this way, including myself.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think perhaps the most obvious clue is the simplest, which is that he clearly doesn't have a hard-on for this guy. You know,
right?
Like
right.
Trump usually goes after people pretty viciously when he doesn't like them. And, you know, not only has he been very civil towards Carney, he's been acting as if it's a foregone conclusion that Carney would win, you know, dating back to March. So, yeah, I mean, at the very least,
what makes you
he's not
think
too
he
upset.
hasn't been trying to help him?
Right. I mean, at the very least, he doesn't seem too upset about this. Not as upset as his base are. I mean, libs of TikTok and wokeness, they're all R.I.P. Canada, Canada. How could you do this to yourself? Because it's so stupid. I mean, what you outline here is, yeah, I mean, look, Carney is one of these, you know, New World Order goons. Although I got to say, the anti-Americanism is the key to my heart. I'm a sucker for that. You know, he gets me with that, you know, and I'm glad you showed some receipts about the pro-censorship stuff, because, you know, there's no faster way to my heart than to trash America, which he did, both on the campaign trail and in his victory speech. And I think that's why he won, actually, because culturally that he had his finger on the pulse of the moment, you know, very anti-American fervor. But yeah, the difference between these people is the cultural signaling. That's why the culture wars are so necessary, because they're the only thing that really differentiate the sort of, you know, World Economic Forum oligarchs with the sort of maverick oligarchs, with the Elon Musk oligarchs.
Right.
Or as Hedges puts it, probably better, the corporates versus the oligarchs. Right. So, yeah, I mean, that's what this represents. That's why, you know, that video of him dancing awkwardly with his elbows, you know, circulates. Is this what you want? As if that fucking means anything in the scheme of things. But it really offends the sensibilities of online losers, which is why the online losers thought this was a very, very high stakes thing. And apparently to Trump, it wasn't that high stakes, because he technically, I guess, based on his public statements, would have preferred Poilievre, but obviously not by much. I mean, he's talking about Carney winning in March. He's saying, yeah, we'll talk more after the election. Assuming the guy loses, which is assuming what you want, why would you talk to him after the election if he's a loser, right?
Right. Yeah. I would definitely entertain the notion that we're just watching wrestling, and all of this is being manipulated by actors who have Trump there to beat the bushes, to scare all the rabbits back into the neoliberal net. That's his job. And even as he's doing that, within this country, he's setting up all the architecture, as Whitney Webb writes about so well. He's setting up all the architecture for a command, surveillance, police state society to take hold. And he's getting the people who would be most likely to resist that to cheer it on. That's
Right.
the key. That's the purpose of Trump.
Yes, I agree. The China Shill, thanks for the donation, says, you saw it here live, folks. The art of the deal, 8 o'clock it is. Russell played hardball just like our dear leader. Thank you, China Shill. Appreciate that very much. Bonzo Bean says, please give your take on Norm Coleman's The Masters of the Universe Are Jews. Maybe have Daryl Cooper on the show to discuss. Thank you, Bonzo Beans. Appreciate that. EO Shush says, I'm surprised the Liberals won. Can't see how Trump's strategy of Canada, I'll make you my bitch, didn't work. Yes, exactly. There was certainly a backlash against that. Yukel27 says, please have Ben Davidson on from the Suspicious Observers channel to talk about the recent European power outage. Much love. Yeah, we almost covered that power outage. We almost did. But we were afraid those who'd be most interested in watching it don't have power, so they wouldn't be able to see it. So we figured.
I gotta say, this is deeply uncomfortable here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, with the couch. Yeah. Hey, guys, I made it back from the U.S. as a tourist. Oh, congratulations, Ahmed. I don't think I'm coming back anytime soon.
And your
so
name's Ahmed?
Could go wrong with this administration. There you go. So you made it back from the U.S. as a tourist. So
did they know
where
your
are you
name
from,
was Ahmed?
Yeah. Well, no, they didn't let him back in. They let him out. In other words, he came in from somewhere, and now he's back where he was. And he doesn't think he's coming back anytime soon. I don't blame you, my friend. Michael Ewan is a member on YouTube for 9 months. Happy memberversary, Michael. Thanks for the chat. I'm exhausted of everything being viewed as a binary of left and right. Somehow every policy that helps regular people is both far left and far right. Luna Wireable says, they voted for the WEF banker. With democracies like this, maybe we should just give benevolent dictatorship a try. Lack of choice is all by design, in my opinion. Well, I mean, benevolent dictatorship is certainly efficient. That's part of why Trump won, honestly. The problem is it doesn't stay benevolent for long.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
We didn't even get first round benevolence handed over to demented next generation.
This is belligerent.
We got demented right out of the gate.
Yeah. Belligerent dictatorship. That's what this is, not benevolent. Belligerent. Polyev made a policy to deport migrants for wrong thought on Israel as well. He lost his rioting of 20 years. Yeah, that does not surprise me. He was a big time Israel guy. Thank you, Wasim. Appreciate that very much. All right, folks, we are going to move right along here. All right, we're going to do a little domestic politics. And in my case, this is essentially local politics, since the district in question here neighbors the one I grew up in. Well, 2 away, actually. Not the bordering, but close. So this is Congressman Mike Lawler, Republican from Westchester and Rockland County, who won his seat in 2022 when Sean Patrick Maloney made the very selfish decision to switch districts, taking the incumbency factor away, and Mike Lawler squeaked out a victory there in a modest red wave of sorts on the House side. But this is a very swing district. Overall, it's kind of a Libby district, so Republicans have a hard time winning there. But he did beat Mondaire Jones in 2024, and now he obviously is having some town halls, in the new term. And he anticipated this going about as well as a lot of these Republican town halls have been going, so much so that, as Tom Harriman points out here, the rules for Representative Mike Lawler's town hall are longer than the Bill of Rights, as he has more rules to attend his town hall than there are in the original Bill of Rights amendments to the Constitution. Amongst these rules to attend Mike Lawler's town hall was no flash photography or audio or video recording, except for accredited members of the press. Now, that has to be illegal. I mean, you're a politician. It's a free event. It's a town hall. People aren't allowed to film you. But why do you think? Why do you think that is? Why do you think he didn't want people filming? Well, we will see, because not only did people break some of the other rules of civility, they broke that one as well, and they actually brought their phone cameras in, obviously. But just to give you a sense of who Mike Lawler is, by the way, he tweeted this out right after being inaugurated in the 2024 or 2025 term, I should say. I was honored to speak this week's kickoff event for the Friends of Judea and Samaria Caucus. That's right. He's in the Judea and Samaria Caucus. I'm excited to join the caucus and look forward to working with them to advance pro-Israel policies in the 119th Congress. Well, really, you're looking forward to advancing pro-Israel policies in the West Bank. So this is just
well, to be fair, he had just come from the Friends of Hittites organization.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes, Friends of Judea and Samaria. So he is basically aligned with Mike Huckabee, and there's a certain cadre of people who don't even use the term West Bank; they use Judea and Samaria. So this guy is explicitly pro-ethnic cleansing. So that gives you a little idea of who he is. And now let's take a look at his introduction at the town hall. Representative Mike Lawler takes the stage at his town hall in Rockland County to a mix of cheers and boos. Liberal groups protested outside earlier and were encouraged to attend. Big crowd there, about 1,200 people. Not good.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening. You're in for a good time. Okay, yeah. So now we're going to see a little bit of the feedback that he got there. Mike Lawler held his town hall last night. He had so many rules that I'm not sure you could call it an open event. The selected press was invited. Participants were not to record, and you had to prove residency, as we will learn a bit later on as well. So here are a couple of outbursts from the crowd and reactions from Lawler.
Corporations and the ultra wealthy, the tariffs that are going to make everything more expensive for us, kidnapping and deporting 2-year-olds who have cancer and sending them off. My question to you, none of this is helping us. We're getting hurt.
None of this is helping us. We're getting hurt. One more time.
2-year-olds who have cancer and sending them off. My question to you, none of this is helping us. We're getting hurt.
So that is the key. And that this is why they're having such a hard time. Because as we went over in the last show, people will put up with a lot in good economic times. They'll put up with very little in bad economic times.
Yep.
And when the cruelty is front and center, she says there, we're deporting 2-year-olds with cancer. Huge applause in the room, which means that word is getting out there. Like, people are getting the news of just, how malicious Trump has been. And they're also saying, well, we're not even able to connect that to any advancement in our well-being, because there is no such advancement. We'll skip a little ahead in the video because I have another video which goes over the same stuff. But here is Mike Lawler talking about Pete Hegseth.
Are we demanding a resignation
of a drunk
based on
of a drunk?
The communication itself should not have occurred. It should not have occurred. And my view has been the administration made that clear. The objective is to make sure, A, that does not happen again, but B,
it did.
More importantly to me, that the military operations are what is paramount. And that those...
Rough stuff. This made the news. This made the New York Times. This made MSNBC even. So here they have a little bit more footage with an introduction.
Lawler of New York faced a really tough crowd during a town hall event in his swing district. Last night, constituents pressed Lawler on the Trump administration's threats to cut Medicaid and the federal government's spending budget. Many of Lawler's answers were interrupted with boos and jeering from the crowd.
What are you doing to stand in opposition to this administration? And what specifically are you doing that warrants the label moderate?
Big ovation to that question. This is a very moderate district, very Zionist district as well. Westchester County, Rockland County, New York City suburb. That's why, he's joined the Judea and Samaria caucus. But a lot of these people here are kind of wealthy, Zionist, moderate liberals who are pro-choice, but they like tax cuts. And, if they get the impression that the Democrats are taxing them too much or that crime is too out of control or that they're not pro-Israel enough, that's how guys like this wiggle in. But this is not friendly terrain for a Republican. And so the question there, hey, how are you exactly a moderate? Because Mike Lawler being there at the end of the day helps Trump. The Republicans play a lot of the same games that the Democrats do. They'll have, rotating villains at certain points, and then they'll have people who pose as sort of, dissenters within the caucus who will only dissent when they have to, so they can still say, hey, I vote with Trump only 75 or 80% of the time, which means I'm not a rubber stamp, but you are a rubber stamp on everything that matters. The ovation to the question, hey, how exactly are you a moderate?
The label moderate.
And then look at his answer here. Just once again, moderate. A moderate member of the Judea and Samaria caucus. As a moderate.
So again, my record speaks for itself. I have been rated the fourth most bipartisan for a reason, which is a very simple fact. That unlike many of my colleagues, I actually do work across the aisle. I actually do sit down with my colleagues. There's not a single local elected official who can honestly say that I have not sat down with them and worked with them regardless of their party. There's not a single one of my Democratic colleagues in the Congress who could say that I don't do that. When it comes to, folks, if you want me to answer the questions, let the question be asked and then listen to the answer. If you're just going to yell back and forth, the time is going to run pretty quick.
All right. So, as you could see, just a brutal experience there, which he later blamed on astroturfing. That's right. So, he comes on for the postgame, the Laura Ingraham show, which is, I guess, guest hosted by the understudy there, Kayla McEnany. So, here he gives a very short explanation of what was to blame for the raucous town hall.
Astroturfing and gaslighting, unfortunately. This is all astroturfing and gaslighting, unfortunately.
All astroturfing and gaslighting. Now, it's interesting you would say this is astroturfing because, of course, one of the very many rules that he posted outside the door is that attendees other than accredited members of the press must live in New York's 17th Congressional District. Proof of residency is required. If you cannot provide proof of residency in New York 17 upon request, you will be asked to leave the premises. So you can't really say it's astroturfed when you were checking IDs at the door and everyone there has to have shown that they lived in the district. And the district, once again, was Mondaire Jones' district until Sean Patrick Maloney, the DCCC chair at the time, decided he would force Mondaire Jones out of his district by switching districts to run here, providing the very weak excuse that after redistricting, his residence was technically just across the borderline between the 18th and the 17th. Maloney decided to run here, not as an independent, but have it run in an open district, run a race in an open district in a red wave year, and that paved the way for Mike Lawler to win. But obviously, this is not an easy district for a Republican to hold, and you're seeing this groundswell of energy. I mean, we covered the Marjorie Taylor Greene town hall. That's in an even redder district, obviously. But where the Republicans made the most gains, actually, in those 2022 midterms, and of course they've held the House ever since, was actually not in the deep red districts, but in the moderate districts, particularly in New York. Moderate districts in blue states is where they actually fared pretty well. And you can see the tide turning so quickly so quickly. I mean, he couldn't get through an answer there. I mean, they screamed over him. He couldn't get a sentence out without being booed, despite the 20 rules that he had posted outside the door. And if he was so convinced this was astroturfing and these protesters were being paid to be there, then why would you post that many rules? Why would you post that many rules? You figure, well, if they're getting paid to disrupt, they're going to do it anyway. So what's the point of having rules? No, you had rules to try to intimidate people from coming if they were going to come and boo and interrupt or film you on video. What kind of politician has a town hall where you're not allowed to film them? No cameras at a political town hall? Again, just like the Marjorie Taylor Greene event where you had cops, tasing people and dragging them out of there. Just another event where one of these Republicans can't finish a sentence. It's really emblematic of just how far public opinion has soured on them in a very short period of time.
They never really had anything to offer. Like, what did they run on? They ran on, some of Trump's base, they're fond of promises made, promises kept. I got to say, looking back, did they promise anything other than we will find you? Not really.
Right, no, it's we will find you, yeah.
Not really, because their economics don't work. All they have are trickle down, which is deeply unpopular because it's failed. It's failed for 45 years, trickle down economics. But if you are a party that is animated exclusively by the vision that the government can't do anything, the government shouldn't do anything, there should be no real society, and rich people should just be allowed to take whatever they can take. And hey, man, if you work really hard, you'll be rich too. All evidence to the contrary. If that's all you have to offer, then the only political agenda you can really make public is we're going to find you, right? The illegal who's living next door to you, they're ruining your life. You have to blame foreigners, even though it's really Donald Trump and his criminal class that sold the country to those foreigners, as we'll see in another segment today, who dismantled our manufacturing infrastructure. That started under Reagan. Reagan deregulating everything and allowing venture capital to come in and strip all these manufacturing firms for parts. That's how we got here. What? China made money off it? That's China's fault? No. Everything that they do is designed to distract attention from who really brought the country to its knees this way. Themselves. Right. It is literally the wolf in charge of the hen house. It's the people who destroyed your life telling you, look at him, get him. It's that one. He's the one.
Yep.
And people fall for it, man, because they're exhausted and overworked, just like they want you to be. Most people just don't have a lot of time to dig into this. This is part of why social media has been so damaging to people's collective understanding of reality, because it's about all a lot of people have time to do. Oh, let's see what's trending. Let's see what people are saying. They don't have time to read a freaking book. I'm not disparaging people. I understand. That's how they want you. They want you like an animal. They want you like a draft animal, overworked, tired. And when you're in that state, you're very susceptible to emotional manipulation and propaganda. And the easiest way to get you to go along with something that really doesn't make any sense is fear and anger. That's all they play on. Now you're getting all this backlash now because in the end, that's all they ever had to offer. Right. Oh, the woke people, we spoke out about those things too, but it's coming from a place where we're also going after the economic system. They don't go after the economic system. It benefits them.
Right, exactly. And that, I think, has become very apparent sooner than I think the Trump people wanted it to. These tariffs have been extremely damaging.
Just wait.
This trade war has been extremely damaging already, and it hasn't even hit yet, as we'll get into in the next segment. This is the calm before the storm. But once you signal to people that you're not going to make their lives better economically, that's when they take a second look at all this other stuff and be like, wait a minute. Well, I thought border enforcement and immigration was to bring wages back up and to ease the strain on social services, but you want to slash social services anyway You're making inflation worse. And where are all the other promises? Where's the no tax on tips thing? Where is that? Like, where's the beef? Where in your platform does my life get better? And I almost wish we had held the polling segment until last night, because they just dropped a Fox News poll, because you get people, the polls are fake, the polls are Fox News. Okay, this is an outlet with a vested interest in pumping up Donald Trump. His approval rating on the tariffs 33%. Overall approval rating 38%. Same exact thing.
Yeah.
You can't hide the truth.
Believe in the
right when the truth is on a price tag, literally.
Yeah, they don't believe in the polls except when it shows 21% approval for Democrats. Then they love to talk about the polls.
Then they love to talk about the polls. Exactly. All right. FU, thanks for the $10, says expose CUFI, the largest pro-Israel organization in the United States with over 10 million members. Christians United for Israel. Thank you. Brad Gilbert, Butler was staged. John Cullen shows the first bullet actually ran along the back row of the far stands. Witnesses said they got a shooter in the woods. Well, there was that person up on the water tower. Didn't they say there was something going on up there that they never...
I mean, I didn't take it seriously before, but when I see how this is all played out, and yeah, man, where is the scar?
Yeah.
Where is it?
It is. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Where is it? It's true. People don't talk about that very often. They say, where is it? The China Shell says, I'm sure revitalizing Canadian nationalism isn't just laying the groundwork for their own fascist movement. You should expect Carney to fumble like Joe, then Canada will elect their Trump. I mean, look, I think that is a theory of sorts, and I don't discount that. I mean, I think it's a good point. The only thing is, like, as we got into in the segment, I mean, Trudeau really fucked it up pretty good. Like, if they were going to have their moment, I think it would have been now. I think this is going to be, Trump has really damaged the right globally. I'd be very curious to see where parties like his win. The AFD did better than they did last time. The AFD couldn't win, but they made gains. That was really that was right when Trump took office, and you had those German elections. It was like a month after. That was still in his honeymoon period. Because don't forget, Trump, he had a tiny little honeymoon. Where his approval rating was like hovering 50. But now it's cut out significantly.
Yeah, and again, if you've got this enormous building right-wing backlash against neoliberalism, what better way could you get people to run back to neoliberalism for safety than to engineer the election of a guy like Trump?
Exactly. Hamhawk says, gotta give Trump $1 billion, and when LA County throws up another hurdle to rebuilding my house, tell them to suck it. Thank you, Hamhawk. RB Ham ran a good race. Everything is going according to the plan. MAGA acolytes are supporting the Trumpenstein project, completely oblivious to the fact that the deep state they abhor is being ushered in by their guy. Irony? Yep. That's what we've been saying.
Yep.
Absolutely. We agree, RB. Okay. All right. Let's move right on along to, well, I shouldn't say this is the calm before the storm. This is the rain clouds are moving in. The rain clouds are rolling in. Sounds like the beginning of a Woody Guthrie song.
Did I have all the videos for this one?
I think you did, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So. All right. Hope so. All right. Otherwise, we're going to have to take a pause. I think I did.
Yeah, you got the videos loaded up through Amazon, it looks like. So you might have to take a pause between this and Amazon.
Okay.
Just to check. All right.
Okey-doke. There have been a lot of rumors that we're about to face a complete collapse in the ability of retail outlets and businesses to get enough stock to put on their shelves. So Besant was asked about this, and this is what he said.
Are you worried about empty shelves? Because they say that a lot of these, the supply lines and the cargo ships are being held up. A lot of people are saying, turn it around. With the tariffs this high, I don't want the product. Are you worried about empty shelves?
Not at present. We have some great retailers. I assume they pre-ordered. I think we'll see some elasticities. I think we'll see replacements. And then we will see how quickly the Chinese want to de-escalate.
Tomorrow's your day.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. Well, there are some early indications that it's not fine.
Pre-order.
For example,
should be good for at least 11 days.
At least 11 days. By then, we'll have this thing wrapped up.
Yeah.
Z's been calling us like a 900 sex hotline. Yeah, empty port in Seattle raises concerns of empty shelves. So the ports in Seattle, some of the main ports in the country, a major economic driver in that region, empty. Miami ports, empty. Another major port.
Ramen soup doesn't expire. You could hold on to. You could eat ramen soup for the next year and a half.
Yeah, hopefully they ordered enough. Port of Los Angeles says shipping volume will plummet 35% next week as China tariffs start to bite. Quote, it's a precipitous drop in volume with a number of major American retailers stopping all shipments from China based on the tariff, said Gene Soroka, executive director of the Port of Los Angeles. Shipments from China make up about 45% of the business for the port, though some transport companies will be looking to pick up goods at other points in Southeast Asia to try to fill up their ships, Soroka said. Last week, Walmart, Target, Home Depot, CEOs all went to the White House to meet with Trump. This is Spencer Hakimian. He's an investor, certainly not a lefty. If you think Americans are angry now, just wait another 14 days for shelves to begin being empty in Walmart. Going to be an absolute fucking nightmare. And there's a little bit from Axios. The CEOs of 3 of the nation's biggest retailers, Walmart, Target, and Home Depot, privately warned him, meaning Trump, that his tariff and trade policy could disrupt supply chains, raise prices, and empty shelves, according to sources familiar with the meeting. Quote, the big box CEOs flat out told him the prices aren't going up. They're steady right now, but they will go up. And this wasn't about food. And he was told that shelves will be empty. Another official briefed on the meeting said the CEOs told Trump disruptions could become noticeable in 2 weeks. So this was last week. So that's really like next week, first week in May. Now, this is a video. Now, we can't say this is definitely as a result of tariffs, but if you've ever been to a Target, this is kind of weird to see 2 aisles of shelves empty, even if they're in the process of restocking.
Just look at this.
I mean, you
Unreal.
saw this in 2021,
This
coming out of the pandemic. That's
This is
when you saw
definitely
this.
Off
Yeah.
target. Not on target. Empty.
Looking for a pair of pajamas I could tuck my dick into. I can't find one. The shelves are empty.
I can't find it. I need tuck bathing suits for my kids. So a major financial analyst firm put out a report that made a lot of stir. Empty shelves, trucking layoffs lead a summer recession in Apollo's shocking trade fight timeline. So this is some of the article. If you look up that article, it actually links to their whole key point presentation. So yeah, you could see just the complete collapse in container ships coming out of China from about 70 to 40. I'm assuming that's per day. And they included this too, because they're giving an overall thesis about where they see the economy going. International arrivals to the United States down from some countries as much as 40%. Tourist arrival by air down about 30% overall. The economic impact of the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration will soon become apparent to everyday Americans and lead to a recession this summer, according to Apollo Global Management. Torsten Slok, chief economist at Apollo, laid out a timeline in a presentation for clients that showed when the impact of tariffs announced by President Donald Trump could hit the U.S. economy. Based on the transport time required for goods from China, U.S. consumers could start to notice trade-related shortages in their local stores next month, according to the presentation. Quote, The consequence will be empty shelves in U.S. stores in a few weeks and COVID-like shortages for consumers and for firms using Chinese products as intermediate goods. To support the idea that the U.S. economy is on the verge of recession, presentation also included data that shows new orders for businesses, earnings outlooks, and capital spending plans have all fallen sharply in recent weeks. So this is their timeline. It's April 2nd, tariffs announced, container ship departures from China to U.S. slowing. Early to mid-May, container ships to U.S. ports come to a stop. And as we saw at the beginning, we're already seeing some of that in some of the major ports. Mid to late May, trucking demand comes to a halt, leading to empty shelves and lower sales for companies. Late May to early June, layoffs in trucking and retail industries. Summer 2025 recession. Quote, the consequence will be empty shelves in U.S. stores in a few weeks and COVID-like shortages for consumers and for firms using Chinese products as intermediate goods, Slock wrote in a note to clients Friday. Now, Bloomberg did a pretty good overview on this. So here's some of what they said. Cargo shipments from China to U.S. have plummeted by as much as 60% since the U.S. raised tariffs to 145% in early April, and this reduction will soon be felt by American consumers. By mid-May, thousands of companies will need to replenish inventories, which could lead to empty shelves, higher prices, and COVID-like shortages, as well as significant layoffs in industries such as trucking, logistics, and retail. This is what we were talking about earlier. Now we're waiting to see the shelves really empty out, but you already have Temu charging a special international freight charge because of the tariffs. They had free shipping before. So now you see an order that would have been, 138? It's 269. The import charges are $117. So it's almost doubling the cost of the item. Even when hostilities ease, restarting trans-Pacific trade will bring additional risks. The freight industry has reduced capacity to match weaker demand. That means a surge of orders sparked by a détente between the superpowers will likely overwhelm the network, causing delays and boosting costs. A similar scenario unfolded during the pandemic when container prices quadrupled and a glut of cargo ships jammed up ports. Quote, there will be a surge in ports and consequently for trucks and rail, creating delays and bottlenecks, said Lars Jensen, Chief Executive Officer of shipping consultant Vespucci Maritime. The U.S. tariffs on China came at a critical time for the retail industry. March and April is when suppliers start ramping up inventory for the second half of the year to fill orders for back-to-school shopping and Christmas. For many firms, the first holiday goods should be hitting the water bound for the U.S. in roughly 2 weeks. These are some responses. We're about to face supply shocks and empty shelves. You'd be wise to stock up on essentials now. Purchase all major electronics and appliances for the year if you can. Staples like rice can be purchased in 20-pound bags, and it lasts forever. Panic buying is days away.
Yeah, no joke. That ain't no joke. Really?
No,
isn't.
I know. I
I go to
laugh
Sam's Club right now. I got to leave early, folks. Sorry, show's over. I got to go to
later.
BJ's.
I'll take over.
Please buy some rice.
James Tate here says the empty shelves were already beginning. Went to buy groceries this morning. There were shelves around the store that were empty and empty freezer cases. I actually know people who are not able to get certain things that they ordered because they got halted in transit. So yes, this is already starting to have an impact. People are not understanding what empty cargo ships from China means. It means no work for dock workers, no work for truck drivers, no work for retailers, fewer dollars circulating, the cascade effect is just mind-boggling. And in a lighter note, but we're going to have beautiful empty shelves, and it's something I think you'll be seeing very soon. We won't be the country of clutter anymore. It's called minimalism, okay? So yeah, there you go. There you go. Making America great again. So much winning.
Yeah, man. I mean, if you saw, I mean, yeah, you got a taste of it there. That was the sarcasm piece of it. But yeah, the replies I tweeted out, the replies to that post about the empty ports were just amazing. All of a sudden, the chuds are all hippies. All of a sudden, it's, hey man, don't you have enough stuff, man? You know.
Yeah.
Somebody here, I'll read some.
It's only cheap plastic goods that come from there.
Right.
You don't need those.
Yeah, MindMelt66 says, we will save money not buying junk. Desert Vibes says, maybe having less for a while will help bring about more appreciation for what we do have. Oh, yeah, no, I'm sure if Joe Biden were president and the ports were empty, that's exactly what you'd be saying. Hey, maybe it's good for the soul to go without for a little while. Yeah, sure. Hilarious.
Hey,
adorable,
man,
and hilarious.
Why are you so into your stuff, man?
Yeah, right? You so into your stuff, man.
It's not good for you spiritually, man.
Just go touch grass, man. Not too much, because then you'll forget who Cat Turd is. We need you wired to your phone as much as possible. But go get in touch with the universe, man. You don't need all that stuff. No, it's
best things in life are free, man.
The best things in life are free. The obvious tumults that this is going to cause in terms of inflation and retail and supply chain and scarcity. Yes, I mean, obviously that's stuff that everybody's been focused on. But what this story kind of touches on is something that I think fewer people have been focused on, because it's sort of 2 degrees from the average person. Like, the average person goes to a store, they see stuff, it's either there or it's not. It's either cheap or it's expensive, so they get a sense of that right away. The other part of this, though, that is going to be devastating is the effect on logistics and transportation, which, from the Republican standpoint, too, the number one employer by far of the Trump base, which is men without a college degree, is transportation. Trucking. Yeah, trucking. Exactly. So if there's no demand for that and you have layoffs in that industry, that's going to be devastating. And as the article mentions, if and when there is a détente and things get going, now you're going to have this flood of demand coming in. That's something we didn't see as much during COVID. You had supply chain issues, but I worked at a UPS warehouse during COVID. The demand was through the fucking roof, obviously, because people were locked in their houses, and so everything got shipped to their door, which created, I mean, it was terrible. Obviously, I'm not advocating for it. I don't fondly remember those days, but you didn't have truckers going out of business. We actually needed more people in logistics, more people in transportation. This could freeze out that industry, and that is devastating to the working class on top of the inflationary effect.
The Bloomberg article really got into this. They interviewed small business owners, people who own like children's clothing stores, toy stores. They interviewed one business owner who was expecting to pay $200,000 for children's clothes coming in at the dock. The bill was $350,000. They refused delivery. They said, we're a small business, we can't afford that. And in terms of the container ship industry, this has caused a complete collapse in shipping rates. So these businesses are already under the gun. And in order to stay solvent, they've downsized very quickly to the point of, and they did some of this during the pandemic, where competing shipping companies will share container ships to avoid any empty space in a cargo ship. They're doing that now. So even if tomorrow Trump calls off the tariffs, you're still talking about months of chaos. The damage has already been done. And you also have to take into account how long it takes for these ships to get to the United States. According to reports, you already have ships leaving China 40% empty. So even if you call this off now, it's going to be months of resetting back to normal. Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan Chase just said recession is probably the best case scenario at this point. It's almost inevitable. because this can't just be fixed now. Like, the damage has already been done. And according to the business owners quoted, because of when they have to order for the second half of the year for their big back to school and Christmas season, every week the damage becomes more irrecoverable. So not only are you talking about mass unemployment in these logistics, supply, driving businesses, you're also talking about mass bankruptcies for small businesses that can no longer get what they need. And arguing, buy it in America is absolutely ridiculous. From who? From like you need some kind of a strategy before you can tell people buy in America. That you need, what you need for that? You need government investment. You needed an actual plan. You needed to actually reindustrialize before you started the tariffs. If all of a sudden you just hit tariffs, what? Factories are going to grow up out of the ground? Where is this manufacturing coming from? You're gonna go back to the Henry Ford days, start making kids' toys in the garage? Like, what do you think people are going to do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is rough waters ahead. That's for sure. All right, let me take some chats. Just make sure you got your videos. If you need to import more, just let me know where you're at with that. Samuel Bruce, thanks for the $1.99. I'm a Lawler constituent, just an Israel shill. Yep, that describes him. Brad Gilbert says Russell will get this reference. Where's the scar? Where's the scar?
Yeah, I got it.
Free men die free. Thanks for the $5. Mark Carney is a former central banker, WEF member, and globalist who gains inspiration from Marx and Lenin. Canada is in deep trouble.
I don't know how much inspiration he's getting from Marx and Lenin.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
He surrendered to the communists.
That's right. All right, let's see if we got any Rumble rants over here. Yep, $1 Million Trooper. I feel like after the video cut, that crowd told Representative Lawler to go fuck himself. Thank you, $1 Million Trooper. For those coming in late here, the Rumble tech is not really working properly today, so I'm having to go off the public feed. So I'm trying to get every chat. I think I got everyone so far. I don't think I've missed any. Let's see. Do we have any more here? Nocturnal Human. Oh, by the way, Nocturnal Human, for the 2025, he put the two emojis there, which I didn't recognize at first. It was a pizza and a soccer ball. So pizza, baller, 2025.
Nice.
Thanks, Nocturnal Human. I can give some insight from the grocery store I work night stock at. The amount of food we get in has been a fifth of what we used to get for months.
Really?
So, yeah, there you go. Yeah, I believe it. So, yeah, that was not a fluke at Target then. That wasn't a fluke. It seems to be legit. The shelves won't be visibly empty at first since we adjust what we order based on how much we sell, but there has been a decline in sales forever. People can't buy food. Yeah, they were out of something very basic the other day. I forgot what it was, but yeah, just completely out. I think it was like olive oil or something.
Really?
Yeah.
I use a lot of olive oil. I only cook with olive oil.
Yeah, no, and olive oil has been very expensive lately. Like for the last year,
it's been expensive for a long time.
Well, it's more expensive than the seed oils, but I mean, it's been more expensive than it normally is for like the last year. Like it's gone way up. China Shill says, so you're mad that the people are buying things now? This is just proof that Trump has brought down inflation and everyone is orgiastically buying in ecstasy. Thank you, China Shill. Nocturnal Human says it's a two-sided problem. We can't get the supply in to sell, and people can't afford what we have to sell. It's not about greed either. We can sell some stuff at a loss just to keep customers. Thank you, Nocturnal Human. That's right. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Cool. All right. Let's do it. Let's move on.
This story blew up this morning. A reporter asked George Soros' protege, our illustrious Treasury Secretary Bessent, what his reaction was to rumors that Amazon was about to start including the tariff inflated price on its website, specifically telling people how much the tariffs were costing them.
Reported this morning that Amazon will soon display a little number next to the price of each product that shows how much the Trump tariffs are adding to the cost of each product. So isn't that a perfect crystal clear demonstration that it's the American consumer and not China who is going to have to pay for these policies?
I will take this since I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Is Jeff Bezos still a Trump supporter?
Look, I will not speak to the president's relationships with Jeff Bezos, but I will tell you that this is certainly a hostile and political action by Amazon. And Secretary, if you have anything to add.
Now I got to say, and I'm not making a direct. I'm not saying these are the Nazis, although they share a lot of DNA with the Nazis.
Same hair.
The same hair, same fetishes. I have to say, it really does evoke the way that the corporations helped to empower Hitler, thinking they could control him. Because wow, did they come out swinging? They basically said Amazon is an enemy of the state if they do that. It's as one poster observed, it's now a hostile and political act for Amazon to inform American consumers about the price hikes for everyday products because of our president's moronic tariffs. I thought this administration was going to champion transparency and telling the American people the truth. Yeah, not so much. Not so much.
Well, also, Amazon doesn't want people to think that they're hosing them, that they're price gouging. And the retailers who partner with Amazon, they don't want people to think that they're price gouging them. So they're trying to itemize things. Now, Amazon could lie in theory, but it like there's a reason why they would want to mark that down. It's not out of malice against Trump. As the journalist said, Jeff Bezos is up Trump's ass, as we'll see.
As we will see. So here they are on Fox parroting the party line like they do. It's just like MSNBC for the other side.
Of the Amazon decision on the tariff in terms of clarity. And Caroline Leavitt saying that the president sees it as a hostile and political act to say that the price increases that they are facing would be due to the tariffs.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's hostile or not. I will say that there was no mention whatsoever at Amazon about Joe Biden's inflation. And the fact is that we got to 40-year highs. Inflation measured by the Consumer Price Index was up 9.1%. We all remember we were at the cash register. Everything cost so much more. So, you know, why they're putting a little bug now, this is because of the tariffs, and they didn't put a little bug, this is because of the $7 trillion spent by the Democrats under Joe Biden, is a question.
Yeah, you see, the libs, they are the Biden. Fucking. And isn't it uncanny how it's exactly the same exact thing that Leavitt said, just like the way that, Jake Sullivan would say something and the press would parrot that. These are all traps for your mind, depending on what your ideological inclination is. And all of it is intended to distract you from what's actually going on, which, as we will see, it's a big club and you ain't in it. So the reason they did not have a chart like that of Biden's inflation is it is much more difficult to directly attribute inflationary pressures to any one particular policy or one particular president, particularly under circumstances of a theoretically once in a century pandemic, whereas Trump has set a literal number of 145% tariffs on China. You can reasonably, literally, directly link that to the policy, and you can set a very specific number to it, whereas it would almost be impossible to do that regarding inflation.
Exactly.
So it did not take long. It just took 1 point off Amazon's share price before they backed off on that idea, if indeed they were planning on doing it.
report initially said that Amazon was going to start adjusting its prices online to show the exact amount which was due to tariffs. An Amazon spokesperson now responding to CNBC saying, quote, the team that runs our ultra low cost Amazon Haul store has considered listing import charges on certain products. This was never a consideration for the main Amazon site, and nothing has been implemented on any Amazon properties. So, guys, we had seen some impact in the markets on Amazon stock this morning after the White House called this a hostile and political act. Amazon now saying this is not under consideration for the main site.
Now, when I first heard this story, it sounded funny to me. Really? Amazon knows how vindictive and lawless this administration is. That is, you could not call out this administration any harder than to start listing the impact of tariffs on prices on Amazon. Now, you're right, Amazon has a motive to try to avoid being blamed for it. At the same time, Jeff has gotten quite friendly with Don. You might remember he showed up with his duck-lipped fiance at Mar-a-Lago. It's a big club, folks, and you ain't in it. You ain't in it. So here were some of the reactions to the original video where they asked Bissent that question. Democrats continue to not understand that tariffs are used for negotiation. Foreign countries have been hammering U.S. exports with massive tariffs while we've let them skate by for decades. That's not what's happening. This is why reciprocal tariffs matter. No more one-sided deals. No more economic surrender. It's America's turn. Yep, it is America's turn to experience third world conditions, baby. Imagine thinking standing up to China is the problem, not Amazon crying because they can't squeeze every last dime from slave labor overseas. Make it in America or shut up. Now that actually, there is the kernel of a seed of the germ of a point there, but we're going to show you in a minute why you're pointing your ire in the wrong direction. And very simply, buy American made. Well, people used to buy American made. And then corporations and the oligarchs that own them decided they could make more money by ruining your life. And now they got this guy, Donald Trump, who's pretty good at faking this common man demeanor, who is very good at deflecting your anger away from themselves and towards the countries that benefited from the policies that were actually created by their own class who never gave a shit about you. And they got you to vote to give them even more power, to actually put them in charge of you. So here, Kim Iverson actually found this video. This is where I first saw it. I ran it down. Here's a Chinese man explaining to you why you're angry at the wrong people.
They rob you blind and you thank them for it. That's a tragedy. That's a scam. That's why I'm saying this right now. Americans, you don't need a tariff. You need a revolution. For decades, your government and oligarchs only ship your job to China, not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap labors. And in the process, they hollowed out your middle class, crushed your working class, and told you to be proud while they sold your future for profit. And yes, China made money, but we used it to build roads, lift millions out of poverty, fund healthcare, raise living standard. We reinvested in our people. My family also benefited from it. What did your oligarchs do? They bought yachts, private jets, mansions with golf course driveways. They manipulate the market, dodged tax, and poured billions into endless wars. And you get stagnated wages, crippling healthcare costs, cheap dopamine, debt, and flagged wave property made in China while they pick your pocket. For 40 years, both China and the United States benefit from the trade, the manufacturing, but only one of us use that wells to build. This isn't China's fault. This is yours. You let this happen. You let the oligarchs feed you lies. Well, they made you fat, poor, and addicted. Now they blame China for mess they made. I don't think so. I don't think you need another tariff. You need to wake up. You need to take your country back. I think you need a revolution.
Damn right.
You're talking to me all
And
wrong.
that
It's the wrong tone.
and that is exactly why they are telling you that China stole your country. That China. How did they do that?
Right.
The Red Army landed in Alabama and took over the farmland. Landed in Arkansas. Drove Sarah Huckabee Sanders into the barn. No. Who did that? Who made the decisions that destroyed your town? Who made the decisions that destroyed the economy for working class and middle class people? China did. Does China have the power to make those decisions? Who made the decisions that led to this? And of course, Trump's answer to that would be, oh yeah, no, all the presidents before me, they were terrible. Sure, that's true. That's true as far as it goes. But part of their philosophy was the same exact philosophy of no government projects to help people, no New Deal kinds of projects. So you're not really reversing what these presidents did. Biden, and we're not Biden fans, and Build Back Better was a fraction of the size that it needed to be. But yes, if you wanted to reindustrialize America, that is how you would do it. You would put a lot of money and incentives into building factories here, into rebuilding the infrastructure so that those factories are in a country that doesn't have mid 20th century crumbling roads and infrastructure. And then later on, maybe you do tariffs, maybe later on, to help those industries grow and get a greater market share in the domestic market. It's not that you could never use tariffs, but when you use tariffs, when you ideologically are opposed to any kind of government support for the population, you get what you get here. You're going to have empty shelves and no way to fill them because you just don't even have the manufacturing base anymore. And that is not China's fault. That's the fault of the same exact people who are telling you now that they're going to bring your manufacturing job back, which again, even if they build the factories, both Besant and Lutnick gave away the game in candid moments. They both said when they were asked, where's the labor force going to come from? Oh, well, these factories will mostly be automated. Oh, these factories will be AI. Even if they build those factories, those jobs are never coming back. And that's what they don't want to tell you.
Yes, and they don't want strong unions. So, a factory, factory jobs are not inherently great jobs. They can be suitable if there is a strong labor movement, if there are strong unions in place. But it's not like inherently factory jobs mean you're going to have this new working class paradise that you usher in. I just want to look at something for the first time because this broke since we started the show here. This is Donald Trump commenting on Bezos's 180. So you're seeing this for the first time along with us.
Not going to be closing. We're going to keep it open for the people of Michigan and for our country. And I look forward to that. Some of you are going and some of you aren't. Any questions? Great. Jeff Bezos was very nice. He was terrific. He solved the problem very quickly. And he did the right thing, and he's a good guy.
He's a good guy. There you go. He did the right
big
thing.
Club, and you ain't in it, baby.
That's
you
right.
You are
He's
not in the big club.
Yeah. Did he talk to Bezos? He say he's a good guy?
I mean, he's implying that he did.
Yeah. I thought I saw somebody else say maybe he talked to Bezos.
Bezos is not the CEO anymore. That is the only basis on which I say that this was even possible, that they were really going to do this.
Oh, okay. Here we go. All right. So here. We won't play this video again, but I'll show you just so we put the receipt up here. So yeah, this says here, C-SPAN reports that the journalist asked how the call with Bezos went. So yeah, apparently they got on the phone. Now, what's interesting about this is that according to that TV report that we just saw, Amazon said it was never considering this. But if Trump called them up on the phone, the way Trump's making it sound is like they were considering it, of course, and they decided against it. Right.
And then Bezos might have made a call. That's why I'm saying it could be the people who are running Amazon now were going to do it, and then Trump called Bezos, and Bezos called them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Because I cannot imagine Jeff Bezos deciding to do that.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either, given his friendship with Donald Trump now, right? I mean, he's on the team now. He's in our club. What does he say? He's weaseling his way into our club.
Yeah, into our club. Yeah,
into our crew. Into our crew. I think he called it a crew.
No, the guy working at the Tasty Freeze, the people at Mar-a-Lago. Common interests.
Yeah,
common
Bezos
interests.
is trying to weasel his way in.
You're not at cross purposes at all.
Yeah. The second thing I want to add to this came in a super chat from Todd S. And I looked this up. It's true. UPS announced today, since we went on the air, they're laying off 20,000 workers and closing some locations. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah, that is massive news. That's massive news.
Yep.
That's 4% of the workforce. UPS employs about 500,000 people. And so that's 1 in every 25 UPS workers now being laid off. Before this even really hits the fan, before it even starts, just in preparation.
Well, you know, we have this thing called Congress, and taxes are supposed to be their purview. What Trump has done is almost certainly illegal, but you need a Congress to hold him accountable for passing a tax without the approval of Congress, and they're not going to do that.
Right. Yeah, no, it is. It's going to get really bad. It's going to get really bad. That UPS layoff story is a huge story. It's 1 in 25 UPS workers laid off. Again, as we got into in the last piece, you know, transportation is the lifeblood. That industry is the lifeblood of what remains of working class people in this country. Yeah,
I want to see a follow up with the trucker guy who posted the 3 things that he gets done each day.
Yeah, right.
And tagged Elon in it. Is he going to get laid off?
I hope not. I hope not for that guy. But yeah, no, really, really scary. And you know, corporations are of course going to want to let their customers know that the tariffs are to blame for this because they got accused, rightly so, of price gouging coming out of the pandemic. Right. And so they don't want people thinking that they're taking advantage again. Oh, they're you know, they have an incentive. They have an interest in itemizing it because during the pandemic, coming right out of the pandemic, yeah, there were some supply chain issues, sure. But if you looked, corporate profits were through the roof, which means there was a lot of price gouging on top of supply chain issues. And supply chain is much more vague. It's much harder to itemize than this. That's what you were saying. You know, like you're kind of comparing apples and oranges, right? Like they're able to itemize a tariff surcharge, if you will, in ways that you can't really pin down specifically when, you know, there are supply chain interruptions at various stages
and you got
of
the
logistical process.
All these people all of a sudden play dumb. Yeah, Bartolomo. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Bartolomo. Yeah, whatever.
Bartolomo. She doesn't understand the difference. She doesn't get it.
Right.
She doesn't get it. She thinks those things are the same. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. All right. We are at 672 likes. All right, let's keep smashing that like button here. Between Twitter and YouTube, we are at 2,200. All right, folks, smash that like button, smash that follow button. 814 on Rumble, not a bad crowd on Rumble either. Thanks all for being here. Lori Lamb says Dell computers are made in the U.S. but has components from overseas. Well, that's the other thing. That's the other thing. You could make stuff here but still rely on stuff. Yeah,
it's just plastic zoo animals.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's all we get from them.
Fred Flintstone action figures.
That's
Greta Good says this guy Besant looks like what happens after the effective mating of Bill Clinton and Bush Jr. Yeah, he does kind of look like Jeb a little bit. And he has a thing where his mouth, he squishes his mouth. He like barely opens his mouth when he talks. Violent Fembot says David Frum was the keynote speaker at a Virginia Republican gala my mom dragged me to in high school, 2001. He literally said economic struggles bring families closer, and all the rich assholes cheered. Yeah, that does not surprise me in the slightest. Username says, history shall remember Joe Rogan as the hero of the Boxer Revolution, ending the Copium Wars. I like that. Good one. Ending the Copium Wars. Richard Namulala says, Buffalo weather about to get crazy. Get ready, Russ. Are you expecting severe weather up there? Is that true?
Are we? Are we
Andrew-
expecting severe weather?
I don't know. That's what he says. Andrew Baez says, a recession caused by Trump. Trecession. Good one, Andrew Baez. Neoliberalism leads to Soviet-style empty shelves, says Artie Blarty Fartblast. Thank you for that very much. Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit here. So we've been covering a little bit the kerfuffle between Harvard University and the Trump administration. The Trump administration threatened to withhold over $2 billion worth of funding and grants and such unless Harvard bends to their will and suspends DEI and cracks down on pro-Palestine speech, which are, of course, two absurdly contradictory aims. Get rid of your DEI, except for Zionists. Then, we need ZEI, as we call it, Zionism, Equity, and Inclusion. But the judge just set a hearing for this case. It is on an express timeline here. Judge sets hearing date for Harvard's lawsuit against Trump administration. A federal judge agreed to expedite Harvard's lawsuit against the Trump administration over its attempt to freeze more than $2.2 billion in federal funding to the university on Monday. Massachusetts District Court Judge Allison D. Burroughs, a Barack Obama appointee who is presiding over the case, set a hearing for July 21st during a status conference at the John Joseph Moakley Courthouse in Boston. The decision came after Harvard requested an expedited schedule for hearings in a Wednesday court filing and indicated it planned to seek a resolution through summary judgment, a decision issued without trial. The university also declined on Wednesday to seek a temporary restraining order or preliminary injunction, which would have temporarily blocked the White House's proposed funding freeze before Burroughs reached a decision in the case. Burroughs set a June 2nd deadline for the parties to move for summary judgment. Harvard sued the Trump administration for demanding that the university accept sweeping concessions, including disciplining members of prominent pro-Palestine groups and eliminating all its diversity programming, or see billions in federal funding pulled. In its lawsuit filed last Monday, Harvard argued the move violated procedural requirements and represented an unconstitutional affront to its academic freedom. Well, Harvard University has an unlikely ally, apparently, in Candace Owens, who has obviously been at odds with some of the MAGA base, the pro-Israel faction of the MAGA base, but it remained a question, will she turn on Trump beyond this one foreign policy issue? Because as we know, the Israel issue has tentacles in all kinds of other issues, economic issues, civil liberties issues, even public health issues. As we found out, the NIH is now withholding research grants to organizations if they're at colleges that are divesting from Israel. So it remained a question, hey, how far is she going to take this? Well, good on Candace Owens, backing Harvard University against Donald Trump, going as far as to say that she doesn't recognize this administration anymore.
A day where I would be rooting for. I never thought that I would see a day where I would be rooting for a university above Donald J. Trump and his administration. But I don't recognize his administration right now. I don't recognize what's happening. I have a theory. I do. We were kicking around some theories earlier, me and the team, and we were going, how could Trump be such a free speech enthusiast and allowing these things to happen? Going after college universities, trying to suppress speech, while pretending that you're not suppressing speech, while pretending that you're fighting DEI. It's so messy. It's so obvious. Everyone knows what you're doing. People who are still trying to grift, I suppose, are not willing to challenge you on this, which is ridiculous, because when you are out of office, we are going to have to live with these consequences. Our children are going to have to grow up in this America, okay? So when you threaten our speech, it's not worth it so that we can have pom-poms and go hurrah for a couple of years, then go, okay, well, yeah, now it kind of stinks because, we're getting arrested for wrongthink. We got David Friedman. Yeah, arrest him. Arrest Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. Get them. I love it. And if you think it's going to stop with college campuses, you're out of your mind. So you better buck up and root for Harvard University in this fight.
Pretty good. Pretty good. And of course, she's touching a third rail there in her own space with the grifter comment. But it's true, man. It's true. It is so easy to just cheerlead for Trump. I mean, if we decided to do that, we'd be at 1 million subs right now, easily. Easily. The growth in that is unbelievable. You could be the most untalented, mid-wit moron on earth. And if you create the thumbnail of a liberal woke kid crying. And Trump pointing in their face and laughing, forget it, man. That's gold. That's
you get
gold.
the one on the knees
exactly,
when he got elected.
Yeah. Exactly.
You got the
gold.
one with the glasses.
You're right. That's all it takes. The videos don't even have to be good. You just need good thumbnails. That's really it. If you have a good thumbnail game and you cater to, a specific, slice of the online market, you will do extremely well. And that of course, is what's happening all around her. And the question was going to be, how far will these kinds of creators go to toe the line? At what point does it become completely untenable? Because Candace Owens has been talking like this about Israel for a year, and it's like, all right, well, I mean, I'm assuming you still back Trump in the election, so at what point do you disown Donald Trump? And she says, I don't recognize this administration right now. How could you say you're pro-free speech? Now, I never thought Donald Trump was pro-free speech, but he did talk like he was, and the conservative movement sort of adopted that as one of its causes when speech was under attack from the liberal left, which was in power. But beyond that, they have no philosophical commitment to free speech. They never did, and the Israel issue brings it out and makes it completely obvious, to the point where she's saying, hey, if you have the foresight to understand that just as the Patriot Act was implemented under George Bush and reauthorized under Barack Obama, and now here we are with 4 more years of Donald Trump, God knows how he'll use that. We're already seeing the writing on the wall in terms of how he'll use that. How will your woke liberal adversaries use this precedent to come after you? Don't you think this is a scary road to go down? Or are you so short-sighted and so driven by tomorrow's ad dollars that you'll just pretend, no, Donald Trump is fighting for free speech, and ignore the glaringly obvious hypocrisy on the Israel issue? And beyond that,
by the end of the year, she's going to dye her hair blue.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
And become a total shit lib.
That's right.
She's
Beyond
gonna
that,
be on MSNBC soon.
Yeah, the DEI. So it just came out yesterday. U.S. probes Harvard and its law review for race-based discrimination. Of course, what do you think they have an issue with? President Donald Trump's administration said on Monday it was probing whether Harvard University and the Harvard Law Review violated civil rights laws when the journal's editors fast-tracked consideration of an article written by a member of a racial minority. The announcement of the probe by the U.S. Departments of Education and, look at that, Health and Human Services. Oh, don't worry. Hey, how much harm could he do? It's not like they're going to make any decisions regarding, Israel or racial politics or anything like that. No, don't forget, it's not just health, it's human services. I guess this falls under human services. Said Harvard Law Review editors may have engaged in race-based discrimination in violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Okay, so they're able to sniff out, first of all, that's an offense you wouldn't see unless you were really looking for it, unless you were really looking to fuck them
it's
back.
crazy.
Who even monitors the timeline?
This is our biggest problem.
Yeah, right. So you have people sniffing around the Harvard Law Review, seeing how many drafts they pitch a non-white minority before they greenlight their article. My brother wrote for his law review. He went to an Ivy League law school. Like, you don't necessarily think the feds are breathing down your neck there.
Don't fuck with us.
Yeah. the feds breathing down your neck. So that's the other just obvious one-sidedness of all this. You're cracking down on DEI while seeking out special protections for Jewish students on behalf of Israel. Friedman, the guy she mentioned, we showed a clip of him last time on the show. He was Trump's original ambassador to Israel, who said, hey, now it's great that Donald Trump is willing to crack down on anti-Israel speech, including fines, deportation, and yeah, he floated it, potential imprisonment. Well, where do you think that comes from? That all comes from the Patriot Act crackdown, which was what, 4 administrations ago, 5 administrations ago? So if you have actual principle and you have foresight and you're not just a complete click-chasing hack like most of the people in this space, especially in her corner of it, I must say nowadays at least. That can change with the times, obviously.
Sure.
You know, it depends on who's in power, right? You always have your ass kissers. But if you're not one of those people, you surely understand the danger in doubling and tripling down on support for what this administration is doing, and just as importantly, ignoring the free speech, the flat-out assault on free speech that Donald Trump is committing. Already worse on this than all of his predecessor, I would argue, dating back to George W. Bush, dating back to the guy who actually signed the Patriot Act itself.
Well, that's what I've been saying since I went to the douchebag dialogues and got a whiff of what that whole scene was.
Yeah,
it's just another side of the whole State Department propaganda complex. No, these people don't have principles; they have a business. They have a business. If it's and if you get to a certain level in that business, in this particular moment with this particular administration, you're getting the kind of access that the old legacy media traditionally got. Look, you got Tim Pool sitting there in that office. What do you think? They're not prone to the same motivations of access to power that the legacy media was, but even more so because the legacy media expected that access. When all of a sudden you got these independent podcasters who have gotten very rich off peddling a narrative that people want to hear.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you get access to the president, you get access to world leaders, you get a lot of the toys that the legacy media used to get. You all of a sudden going to stand up and say, yeah, well, I don't like their position on speech, and know you're going to blow all that up. You're going to lose a lot of your audience. You might do that if you got into the space as an activist. And that is really where you see the difference. Most of the people who are really prominent in the space came out of a media background. Tim Pool came out of Vice. No, these people, their objective was not to be activists. Their objective was to be media figures. That's their motivation. That's what they're motivated by. They're not activists where they're going to be willing to take a financial hit to take a principled stand. Now, Candace Owens, I've mentioned this documentary a few times. I would recommend it. It's called Uncle Tom. It's about Black conservatives, and she's heavily featured in it. And, I came away from it saying, yeah, I don't agree with a lot of her beliefs or other people featured in the documentary. But some of them I felt were people of principle, and she was one of them. And I still don't agree with a lot of what she believes. But I do think she is a very rare exception in that, particularly in her corner of the podcasting space, who is willing to take the slings and arrows you're going to take when you say something like that about the big chief that they all worship.
Yeah, and part of why she can afford to do that too is because she has talent. And when you have talent, you're able to kind of go it alone because you trust that you're giving people something that they actually value beyond just telling them what they want to hear. A lot of people who just toe the party line, they do it because they have no talent. Like they're just complete morons. Like
Beanie Boy has to take that Netanyahu dick.
Yeah, well, and the tub of shit there. What's his name? Jeremy, the quarter.
Oh, like, Jeremy, the quarter.
Who would watch that if he wasn't just telling you what you want to hear? All he does is put a blue hair on the screen and say, "Wow, look at that."
Oh, the wokies are at it again.
They're at it again. Anyway, sale on coffee this week.
Sale on Coffee Brand coffee for Mother's Day. Oh, the blue hairs are at it again.
Right, like you're not watching that for him. You're watching it to have your bias confirmed.
For your confirmation bias.
Right.
Yeah.
He provides no additional value beyond that.
No.
So someone like Candace
Zero.
Owens, who has a charisma about her and a brain and some talent, she's more likely to go out on a limb a little bit because, hey, I'm bringing you something that you can't get everywhere. So even if you're pissed off at me, you're less likely to just completely shut me out. Whereas these other hacks, there's no reason to watch them at all unless they feed you exactly what you want. But good for her for recognizing that the assault on free speech is really terrifying. It's really, really terrifying. I mean, we are 3 months in out of 4 years. You have no fucking clue where this is going to go. None of us do.
Yep.
All right, folks. We are going to take a quick break to shout out our supporters. That's right. If you want to become a member, we encourage you to do so. Becoming a member through one of our platforms is by far the best way to support the show. Jake made us some 3 hyperlinks, so you got your choice. DoDissidents.com/Patreon/Substack or /Locals. The links are all at the top of the screen right there. So dealer's choice. Perks are the same across all platforms. DoDissidents.locals.com gets you there as well. If you're watching on Rumble, you can click that bright red join button under the screen. For just $5 a month or $50 a year, which gets you 2 free months if you commit to the whole year, that gets you access to a whole bunch of perks. You get your name up here in lights on the show scroll. You also get call-in access to all of our post-show Q&As, live stream access to our pre-recorded full-length interviews. You get every live stream emailed to you ad-free the day after it airs. So if you miss a stream or you only catch half of it and you want to watch the replay and there's ads on the replay, you get the ad-free version of the stream emailed to you the day after it airs. You also get 2 bonus streams per month, our film club and our content and call-in stream. So we are doing a patron show tomorrow night, April 30th at 8 p.m. That will be live exclusively for paid members. Not only do we do about an hour's worth of content on those streams, we take about an hour's worth of your calls. So those are really fun streams. So we're having our patron stream tomorrow night, 8 p.m. You can sign up, DoDissidents.com/Patreon, DoDissidents.com/Substack, or /Locals. Thank you very much for your support. You guys are the backbone of the show. Obviously, we say that every time because it's true every time. Mike T, thanks for the $10 on YouTube. I did some Oppo and listened to the All In pod that Shamath said that U.S. companies need to make decisions that help the American people as if capitalism isn't working as it should. A race to the bottom. Thank you, Mike T. Speaking of All In, there's a report on a group chat from some of the Mark Andreessen acolytes, which we were going to do today, but I thought it might be a little bit long to do as a segment because it's a lot of reading. But maybe we'll do it for patrons tomorrow, or maybe I'll...
Oh, really?
What's that? Yeah. What do you mean?
Well, that's in my wheelhouse.
Oh, yeah, it is in your... You might like to do it, actually, but it is a lot of reading. I feel self-conscious about reading to the audience for 20 minutes, although we've done more reading-heavy segments because it's a pretty long article about it. But, yeah, you might like that one. Javier, thanks for the $4.99. Sometimes when you guys joke back and forth when making fun of a video, it reminds me of Beavis and Butthead. I mean this as a compliment. Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Mr. Fancy Pants, we'll take it. Hey, we'll take it. Mr. Fancy Pants says, that's my girl Candy. Always knew she was fixable. Thank you, Mr. Fancy Pants. Judy Denmark says, did you guys see the message from Lee Fong? The House will vote for a change in rules to stop Congress from requesting disclosures from the Trump administration called resolutions of inquiry. Holy shit. No, I did not see that. We'll have to look into that.
No, I did not. I mean, this is why my whole Buffalo trip, like in the end, I can't buy property in America now. I can't buy property in America now. I'm really worried about properly stocking my bug out bag at this point.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. Yeah, it is.
I might have to flee in the middle of the night.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I would say that for sure. The Vanguard van. Oh, you see, got their logo too. The boys actually did a good segment on Cenk firing Brianna Wu on day one of Justice Dems 2.0 and how horrible Wu is. Was a good hit of Schadenfreude. Did you guys cover Wu's firing? I want another hit. No, we're actually behind on that. I know he was relaunching Rebellion Pack. You know, he has a new like grift every cycle.
I didn't know she was still at TYT.
Well, she's still at TYT? She's not at TYT, but she was part of his Rebellion Pack, the the Justice Democrats knockoff or whatever the hell it was, the spinoff.
I didn't even know about that.
And she's a diehard Zionist, and so
she's nuts.
Yeah,
she's
real nuts.
I responded to her from our account.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She thought the IDF was very friendly. Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
they're just chill 20-year-olds
Yeah, they're
doing
chill.
their service.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I didn't know that he fired her. That's interesting. Yeah, no, it's a real comedy of errors over there. You know, they don't just trust the show. He always has to get some grift going on the side. It can't just
Yeah.
be the show. He's either running for president or he's got a new thing that he's launching or a book he's trying to,
Mhm.
the show is like a sandwich sign for whatever his next scheme is that he's got going on. All right. Let's move.
These Nazis need cheap mortgages too.
Yeah, right.
Will I
exactly.
work with them? Of course.
Of course. Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's keep on moving on here. We've got two more on the day.
We're on now? On that one?
Yep, we're on that one.
All right. Well, if there is anything you should know about the Trump administration, it's that they are great students of history. I'm sure they knew about the way the Romans crucified all of the Spartacus slave revolt members back in the first century BC, 72 to 70. There was a great slave rebellion in Rome. If you've ever seen the great movie with Kirk Douglas, they have this in the movie. They crucified them on the Appian Way, the famous road out of Rome. But that is just one example of a long tradition of displaying criminals outside the palace or by the sides of roads. Vlad Tepes Dracul, who inspired the novel Dracula and the Dracula legend, was very well known for impaling people and eating dinner beside them as he put them on display, very often Ottoman Turks that he was at war with. And then on London Bridge, they used to put the heads of traitors on spikes from the 14th century to the 17th century. And now, our very own Trump administration. Good morning from the White House.
The birds are chirping and the bees are buzzing. It's good
It's
times in America.
Lovely day for a very Orwellian display of criminal posters outside the White House. You have to remember, somebody not only thought of this, but executed it. We are so back.
We are so back.
We are so back. So look, it might not have the flair of crucifying all of your enemies on the road out of town, but you just can't get away with that anymore. Although times are changing back, as they say. So give it a little time. Now, people who were not in those posters, at least from what I saw, maybe you saw that, Keaton, U.S. citizen children, including 4-year-old with cancer, taken to Honduras on mother's deportation flight, legal advocates say. 2 siblings, ages 4 and 7, were flown out of the U.S. on their mother's deportation flight before attorneys could reach them, according to the National Immigration Project. I don't think they put posters of them in that grouping. Or how about this guy? He has a tattoo celebrating Real Madrid. That's a soccer team. His lawyer believes it's why he was deported. This guy is a professional soccer player. Or how about makeup artists mistakenly sent to hellish El Salvador prison with bloodthirsty gangsters? The gay makeup. Oh, wow, man, that guy. I'm glad they got rid of him. Wouldn't want to be living next door to that guy. He might do my flower beds. So he actually was seeking asylum for persecution for being gay and arrived at a scheduled immigration appointment. And they didn't just send him back to his country. He was from Venezuela. They sent this guy to CCOT for coming to a scheduled appointment. He had done nothing illegal. He had done nothing wrong. They didn't put his poster out there, presumably. So these are the people who are telling you that these are all criminals in these pictures. We don't know that. Some of them, I'm sure, are. I am just as sure, based on the record of this administration, that a lot of them aren't. This is what I would call the holy shit, shelves are about to empty stunt.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
They
Exactly.
don't
And even
want-
if they
they
all
don't-
are, even if they all are, to make a show of arresting and jailing people is fascistic in and of itself. Like, you do law enforcement because you have to, right?
Right.
You put people in jail if and when you have to for the safety of people around them. It's not something you make a big show out of. It's not something that you tout. It's not something you tweet out, pictures as Kash Patel did. Pam Bondi doesn't run to the camera to brag about, we will find you. Like the fetishization of punishment is really what they're engaging in here.
Yeah.
And they're doing it because they're doing it for a lot of reasons. I think a part of them, just generally, I think they do genuinely like get off on it because I think they're sick. Very sick people.
Yeah,
But
it's,
also, it's because the shelves are about to empty. Like, this
Right.
is it. This is what they're giving you. What the Trump administration is giving you is the perception of protection against people who want to beat you up. And these are the people who went on for years and years and years about what fragile little snowflakes everyone else was. Whether they were wearing masks or whether they want safe spaces on campus. It's, oh, look at how weak you are. Look at how afraid you are of the world around you. All these people think about when they step out the door is who's going to run up on me and jump me and try. Like, obviously, that's the only group of people who could actually be on board with this are people so paranoid and afraid of everything around them, in constant fear of a brown person, let's face it, coming up to them and trying to hurt them. I can't think of a more frightened way to go through life.
Well, this is something you do when you have a base made up of broken men who feel castrated and disenfranchised to give them a substitute for meaningful power over their lives, to give them an illusion of power by aligning themselves with abuse of a faceless other. Oh, look at these murderers and rapists. Maybe not. Like, what does that say about you? That is where you need to derive your sense of satisfaction, meaning, and self-worth.
Right.
But hey, man, they know their base. I can't say they're wrong. So here's John Leguizamo actually responded. These are fake charges without due process. You are lying, Caroline. 99% of immigrants are law-abiding, loving, family-oriented members of society. Stop spreading hate. Now, like I said, I can't say all the charges are fake. Based on the history, based on some of the people they've deported already, there's no doubt in my mind that some of these people are not guilty of any crimes. We know that the orders of retainment, I think they're called. I could be wrong about that. But ICE puts out orders for immigrants that they want detained.
Right.
I think 1 in 4 are wanted for a crime. Even for the people that they're looking to lock up. I thought they were going to start with the criminals. No, not at all. Deported thousands with no due process, breaking into homes, cars, workplaces, even military facilities, terrorizing women and children, sending people with no criminal convictions to gulags for life, spending tens of millions in taxpayer money, including whatever this abomination costs. Where's Doge?
Right.
Where's
Yeah,
Doge?
exactly.
They should cost them to pull this stunt. And this is all you have to show for it? 20, 30 guys? And by the way, since you're using war powers to justify your actions and methods, this is a violation of the Geneva Accords. It is. You're not allowed to display prisoners like that. So if you're going to invoke war powers, not that these guys really care. Kim Jong-un would blush. Who thought this was a good idea? I bet this was the sugar baby's idea, if I had to wager.
Yeah, I would guess so.
Biden Levitt seems like somebody who would come up with this in a brainstorm while laying next to her geriatric husband at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
It probably gave him a heart attack.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I've got Biden deported more. This is the funny part. Wonder whose idea this was. Maybe you should focus on the criminals instead of the asylum seekers. You people are fucking pathetic. You fuck up the economy, so all you have is deportations, and you aren't deporting more than Biden. That's what a lot of this is. When you see the 2, 4, and 7-year-olds, I've told this story before. When Giuliani was the mayor, they denied it because it's illegal. But it was very obvious that the cops had a quota, that they had to meet a quota. At that time, I saw people get ticketed for standing in their own doorway with a beer, where the cop argued you're on the street, even though they're clearly on their property. I had a police car do a U-turn to come give me a ticket walking from a cab to my front door, literally across the sidewalk with a beer. You don't do that unless you're under pressure to show that you're writing citations. That's a lot of what's going on with ICE. They're getting a lot of heat because it's an embarrassment to them that even with all this, they've drawn in support from other agencies. They're putting all this money in human resources, and they're down from Biden's deportation rate. So these ICE guys are just like, 4-year-old with cancer, whatever, whatever, deport them. So we have numbers on this. And actually, the number of deportations, even though you wouldn't think this because of the way they're playing up the deportations, have actually been going down even over the last few months. So 742 was the average under Biden in 2024, the full year, 2024. So in February, 733. A little later in February, Valentine's Day, 693. By February 27th, down to 600? 600. Bounced up a little bit again, March 14th, 691. So overall, that is a 10.9% drop from Biden. So terrorizing people, completely upending communities, committing horrific violations of civil liberties, to actually come in with less deportations than Biden, because you know what? You can't fix stupid with a crackdown. These people are stupid and incompetent. And as a result, even when they try to do something, they're not even able to do it at the basic level that people who are fundamentally technocrats are able to do it.
Well, I said their concern is not so much with border security or immigration. Their goal is to create a police state.
Right.
And the immigrants are just the
And to get people to
scapegoat.
cheer for it.
Yes,
Yep.
well, yeah, you have to have a scapegoat in order to build a police state, because people don't volunteer to live under a police state. So you have to convince them that they need one, and the immigrants are the scapegoat. They need to do that. Yeah.
All right. Let's just finish up. So some of Trump's people are very happy with it. That is very powerful. Why did Joe Biden let all these people into the country? And why do Democrats continue to fly to other countries to advocate for their release? Do they really hate Americans that much? And the persistent simply says, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, that's who it's for. That's who it's for. In a way, it's the Fox News, MSNBC-ification of politics. Both of those organizations reflect a realization about 30 years ago that you could actually do better just ginning up a very specific niche group that will be fanatically devoted than to try to appeal to a lot of people. This is, hey, look at those guys. They think this is great. They think this is great. They don't question any narrative that you give them. The idea that this kind of an erosion of due process, even if you think these people completely deserve to be sent to CCOT without any due process, well, based on the argument they're making to the Supreme Court that once you're out of the country, the courts can't intervene. Well, yes, they can do that to you then, right? Because the administration admitted they deported Abrego Garcia mistakenly. They admitted that. It's not even something they're denying, right? So but they're arguing they don't have to bring them back because now a foreign country is involved. By that logic, they can take anybody.
Yes, and they want to be able to take anybody.
Right. Yeah. That is the purpose these immigrants are serving, because clearly, as we showed, once again, the numbers are actually down. And they're dropping since Trump got into office. Dr. Phil's not there to help out anymore. So they're all the way down to 661 per day from 742 under Biden. So what's this all about? Yeah, I think you're right. It's destroying the few legal protections that Americans have left. And civil libertarians have been saying this since the day they passed the Patriot Act. All it was going to take was an executive branch with the will to use it according to the implications that were always contained within it. You wait. They haven't invoked the Patriot Act yet, but they will. And the Patriot Act, theoretically, would allow you to indefinitely detain someone accused of terrorism with no habeas corpus, no due process, no nothing. Now, look what they're doing on these college campuses. It's not a very far jump to you protested against Israel, you're a terrorist.
Right, exactly. And they want to be able to do that. This is why I say they want to be able to build a police state. And the immigrants are just a scapegoat that they need. They need to scare you with a boogeyman, just like in the George Bush era. It was Muslim men who were going to come in, right, and commit terrorist acts. Well, this is the same thing. That's why they designated these gangs as foreign terrorist organizations, right? If the numbers were high, they're talking about how many tens of millions of people Biden let pour in. Well, then if you were really interested in solving that problem, wouldn't these deportation numbers be much higher? They're not even as high as Biden's.
Right.
So that tells you right there that their motive is not deportation. It's a show. It's a show.
Look, oligarchs dismantled the company, destroyed your life, destroyed your town, destroyed your state. And the last thing they want is you putting that together. But they know somebody has to be blamed. Immigrants and China.
Right.
Both communities that most of their base have no real knowledge of. So it's very easy to tell them anything they want about them.
Exactly. All right. Ellen Jimerson. Hey, Ellen says ICE sends requests for detainers. Their requests not obligatory. Thank you, Ellen. Adolphus Schickengruber says Cenk has many admirable qualities. He platformed David Duke, started Dave Rubin's career, and steals millions from the naive left-leaning young people. Wait, where am I? You don't look like Steve Crowder. Ha, thank you. EO Shush, what's your theory on why Dems are so quiet on Trump after nonstop hair on fire, Russiagate, January 6th, etc.? Now we will send a strongly worded letters. Does Trump have something on them?
They're just pussies.
Yeah,
they're pussies and they work for the same people.
Well, yeah, and I also think, the big difference there, why they see, why they are more neutered politically this time is because they didn't win the popular vote this time. But, what you do see at the grassroots level is opposition to the Republicans, and the Democrats, despite being really horrible, are poised to benefit from that, just as the Canadian Liberals did, just as the liberal SCOTUS candidate in Wisconsin did, just as Democrats are proving more resilient in these special elections. When you govern so badly, you make these elections simply a referendum on you, not a contest between you and the opposition. And I think that they are benefiting from that, and I think they will keep benefiting from that, honestly. For what it's worth, says Ellen Jimerson, Obama had 400,000 per year deportation quota and a 34,000 bed per day filled with immigrants. Yes. Yep. Indeed. You have told us that in the past. That is pretty astounding. Milton Crow says, how much of Joe Biden's inflation was the result of the Trump-Biden pandemic response? Not saying the state-of-the-art COVID vaccines weren't worth every penny. Well, it was, obviously you had a massive interruption. And that caused a lot of inflation.
Yeah, a lot of it was price gouging.
And a lot of it was price gouging because people saw an opportunity. Hey, the supply chains are fucked up. Right. We could sneak in an extra buck or two for X, Y, or Z, and we'll just blame it on the supply chain. We won't have to itemize why we're charging more. Yeah. And corporate profits went through the roof after that. Nietzsche's tonight, one drink on me. Cheers, guys. Thank you, Richard Namulala. I
am almost definitely gonna go. That's my plan.
You're doing
to
poetry tonight?
go have dinner after this, and then I'll bust my mad rhymes.
There you go.
I don't really do rhymes. My poetry is very Charles Bukowski.
Ah, interesting. Oh, Dwayne Vogel says Nietzsche's. I used to live around the corner from Nietzsche's on College Street.
Oh, did
pretty
you?
loud. There you go.
Yeah, I like that
Kuznetsky
place.
says impeach Elon Musk, says Kuznetsky Bassane. All right, folks, we got one more segment on the day. It's a little bit of a big one. So, folks, Channel 13 put out a report. We're going to read through it right now. It goes, oh, wait, no, sorry, wait. That's the Hebrew. Thankfully, Drop Site News translated the key points and summarized it in what is now an ultra-viral Twitter thread. 6 million views at the time I screenshotted this. No doubt up above that now. But Dropsite puts out here, report Biden officials admit they never pressured Israel for a ceasefire as Israeli leaders boast of playing Washington. A sweeping Israeli Channel 13 investigation has exposed the Biden administration's complicity in Israel's 19-month war on Gaza. 9 top Biden officials acknowledged avoiding real pressure on Israel, even as the death toll surpassed 30,000. Israeli leaders openly bragged they dragged out the war, playing for time until Donald Trump's return. Former National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, Ambassador Tom Nidas, and others defended their unwavering support for Israel, even as they admitted enabling a campaign one USA described as killing and destroying for the sake of killing and destroying. So you remember, throughout the end of 2023 into 2024, there were quite a few resignations from the Biden team, several at the State Department. It's going to be interesting when more of these people start coming forward and talking more about what happened behind the scenes. But obviously, this report details some of that. Section 1, killing and destroying for the sake of killing and destroying. Elon Goldenberg, a senior national security aide, described the war's aimlessness. If they're never going to do this, it doesn't matter what the outcome is. Hamas is still going to control Gaza. You're just killing and destroying for the sake of killing and destroying, but you're not building an alternative. U.S. officials pushed a post-war plan modeled on the anti-ISIS campaign, proposing that Arab states temporarily secure Gaza, but Netanyahu blocked it, refusing any role for the Palestinian Authority. Far-right Israeli ministers Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich openly pushed for reoccupying Gaza and rebuilding settlements. Netanyahu refused to advance alternatives, keeping the door open to their demands. Section 2, we fought for over a year and the administration never said ceasefire now. So remember, as Election Day drew near, they were talking about how they were working to negotiate a ceasefire. Well, as it turns out, they never pressured them for any such ceasefire. That was all a complete lie, including, most egregiously perhaps, when AOC said at the convention that Kamala Harris had been working tirelessly for a ceasefire, which we'll get more into later. Israeli officials were blunt about the benefits of Biden's passivity. Former Ambassador Michael Herzog declared, God did the state of Israel a favor that Biden was the president during this period because it could have been much worse. We fought for over a year, and the administration never came to us and said, ceasefire now. It never did, and that's not to be taken for granted. That is an extraordinary statement, given the fact that we were told throughout the last 6 months of 2024 that they were working towards a ceasefire.
Biden's had it with Netanyahu.
Yeah, he's had it. Biden aides privately admitted Netanyahu was dragging out the war. He's undercutting it every step of the way, said Goldenberg. All the security people are coming out and saying it. He also revealed there were internal discussions in Washington about Biden giving a speech to pressure Israel politically, possibly triggering new elections there, but Biden backed off. So you heard it right there from Herzog. We are very lucky that we have a president as incapacitated as Joe Biden, so incapacitated and so incompetent that we're likely to get Donald Trump next, who will be even easier to deal with than him, right? You see how this all worked out very well. They were just biding their time. U.S. covered for Israeli war crimes and blocked aid report. So this is something that we did a segment on when it happened. But we have some more detail here. State Department advisor Stacey Gilbert resigned after being cut out of the process of drafting a legally required arms compliance report. The final version cleared Israel of violating U.S. law despite overwhelming evidence of aid obstruction. Gilbert called it shocking in its mendacity, adding, "Everyone knows that is not true." Even as settlers looted Gaza-bound trucks and Israel blocked humanitarian aid, Biden certified compliance and kept weapons flowing. Remember when they gave them a deadline to let aid in, and then the deadline for that was, as it happens, mid-November, from October to mid-November after Election Day. And then when the date came and went, they said, yeah, we found no violation of intentionally obstructing aid. Here's Stacey Gilbert at the time she resigned talking to Democracy Now! About this.
Because of Israel's obstruction.
She's saying the reason this famine is happening is because of Israel's obstruction.
This point is because of Israel's obstruction. And to see that written in a report, a joint report from the State Department and the Department of Defense to Congress is ludicrous. And I was just...
Stacey, we just have 30 seconds. Your final message to President Biden.
Do the right thing. Listen to your experts. Do the right thing. It is difficult, but it is necessary because what we've done up to now has not worked for anyone. It doesn't help Israel. It doesn't help.
And what is the right
Gaza.
thing in this last 10 seconds?
The right thing is to acknowledge Israel is blocking humanitarian assistance, and there are consequences of that. And the consequences affect our military sales.
Stacey Gilbert, we thank you so much, former senior civil military advisor.
Goes on. Netanyahu sabotaged captives' release talks to prolong the war. Biden officials revealed that Netanyahu deliberately tanked negotiations, fearing a deal would force him to end the war. American-Israeli hostage Hirsch Goldberg Poland was scheduled for release the day he was executed. Amos Hochstein confirmed there's no doubt those hostages would be alive. Now, they put a little postscript note clarifying that he was not scheduled for confirmed release. His release was being negotiated at the time he was killed, and Hochstein confirmed there's no doubt they would be alive, basically saying that they would have figured out a way to get him released had he not been killed. Netanyahu's public campaign to retain control over Gaza's Philadelphia corridor was viewed by Biden officials as a smokescreen to kill the deal. Again, how many State Department hearings did we cover? How many interviews, or I shouldn't say interviews, Biden didn't do many interviews. How many statements from the Biden White House did we read talking about how he's engaging both sides? Meanwhile, what these people who obviously provided sources to this report are saying is that, yeah, they knew Netanyahu was sabotaging talks all along. They weren't pressuring for a ceasefire. Everything they said they were working on, which granted, they were very vague about everything. We never really got direct answers, direct statements of goals. But perhaps this is why, because what they were really doing behind the scenes is nothing. Nothing. While Netanyahu obstructed hostage deals and peace plans every step of the way. They did absolutely nothing and gave us the bare minimum bullshit story that they thought we would tolerate. Biden backed Israel even after Netanyahu publicly undermined and insulted him. Biden once told Netanyahu he was full of shit and hung up the phone mid-call. But as Ambassador Tom Needus put it, Biden saw Netanyahu as a manipulator, a magician, but he stood by him through the end. In May 2024, Biden announced he was pausing a shipment of 2,000-pound bombs over concerns about their use in Gaza. Days later, Netanyahu accused the U.S. of freezing broader arms deliveries, reportedly pausing Biden's plans to restore the paused shipment. Saudi deal collapsed because Israel refused to make any concessions. Biden officials described how a U.S.-Saudi normalization deal coupled with defense and economic pacts was nearly complete, but it required Israel to accept a political horizon for Palestinians. Dan Shapiro, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, explained, "We always understood that the Israeli government depended on far-right ministers who would try to block that commitment. that might require an election or a coalition shuffle. Former U.S. Ambassador Jack Lew called Israel's refusal to engage kind of shocking. Amos Hochstein said, I don't understand the decision not to grab that opportunity as the most important strategic move Israel can make. Herzog claimed Netanyahu deliberately stalled, hoping what? Once again, hoping Trump would return to office and take credit. It was my understanding that Trump preferred for the deal to wait until he got into office so that he'd be the one to do it. So Caitlin Johnston replies to this. This is the too long, didn't read thing here, the TLDR version. They lied. They lied that whole entire time. They committed genocide and lied about it, and they said you were crazy and irresponsible if you didn't support them. People's rage should shake heaven and earth. Now, here's an interesting quote tweet of this. Ilhan Omar says, we all knew they weren't working tirelessly on a ceasefire, and it was all a lie. Working tirelessly on a ceasefire, that is a not so subtle jab at AOC, who very famously insisted at the DNC that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were, in fact, working tirelessly on a ceasefire. So Empire of Lies says, we all know they weren't working tirelessly on a ceasefire and it was all a lie. True, but some people lie on purpose, and we should never forget it. Here's this moment.
Working tirelessly to secure a ceasefire in Gaza and bringing hostages home.
What a piece of shit she turned out to be. Jesus.
She is working tirelessly to secure a ceasefire in Gaza and bringing hostages home.
And Nick Cruz says this is exactly why AOC 2028 is dead on arrival.
You're going to get your mind right, and I mean right.
She got her mind right.
Yep.
Some people say she was always a CIA plant. There's some evidence for that.
Perhaps. Nick says this is exactly why AOC 2028 is dead on arrival. AOC lying about Joe Biden working for a ceasefire will haunt her for the rest of her career. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. To read a thing like that and then to see AOC go on stage saying she's working tirelessly for a ceasefire based on what? Based on nothing. What this report reveals is that
they were say they lied to her.
No, they'll say they lied to her. The administration was completely passive. The administration was completely paralyzed by what they saw as an unchangeable status quo. And in Joe Biden's case, an undesirable status quo. It is worth saying because, I understand that, the rhetoric of racial politics has become toxic because a lot of liberal opportunists and NGOs have made it toxic to the point where whenever someone calls someone a racist, a lot of people think, well, you're just weaponizing that term cynically where it does not apply. Mm-hmm. No, Joe Biden is an anti-Arab racist, just as he is inarguably an anti-black racist. He has a long documented history of vicious anti-black racism. That's what his crime bill was about. The way he talked about that crime bill was very obvious that he was playing on a lot of racial tropes to win support for his initiative. And he's an anti-Palestinian racist as well. That's what all of this comes down to, is he just felt like, you know what? There's a special relationship between the United States and Israel. And so even after getting into a fight with this guy, even after hanging up a phone call saying you're full of shit, even while privately acknowledging that he is a magician and a manipulator who is sabotaging peace deals on purpose, sabotaging hostage deals on purpose, running out the clock, hoping Trump wins. He's running out the clock, biding his time for Donald Trump to win, and you still don't say anything? And we have to sit through press conference after press conference with Matthew Miller and Fat Sager and whoever else they trot out there, just running out the clock, saying, yes, our partners are looking into this massacre or that massacre, and they'll get back to us, knowing they're going to be out the door soon, and they're never going to get back to us. They never did. This was all just stalling in service of a status quo that they felt was completely unchangeable and that they showed no desire to change, all the while trying to string us along, using people like AOC to go out there and play to the sensibilities of the social justice base. Hey, we're working on it. They're not working on it at all. This is the first of, I think, many bombshell reports that are going to come out. Because don't forget, you had a lot of resignations throughout the course of this genocide. There are a lot of disgruntled people there who this is going to haunt for the rest of their lives. And they're going to want to come out and say more. And so this is obviously a big start, but I hope it's only the start. I hope a lot of people, maybe some people who didn't resign, will have a crisis of conscience and come forward with even more information about how all of these people should be in fucking prison. Abby Martin says Joe Biden belongs in a dungeon for what he enabled in Gaza. And it's absolutely true.
Yeah, this was all very obvious when you look at the difference between what they were saying and what was actually happening. And anybody with any sense or any knowledge even of the history of American presidents telling Israel to knock off the shit, including Reagan.
Yeah.
Right? Reagan, according to reports, Reagan saw one picture of a child with their limbs blown off, said, this is a genocide, stop.
Yeah.
We fund them. We arm them. One actual phone call from an American president saying you need to stop immediately. That would be it. It does seem like since Reagan's day, the financial penetration of AIPAC and other associated groups has grown by leaps and bounds. And it does seem like that's what's really driving this. Now, Biden was always a company man who just worked for the establishment. Joe Biden, you have him to thank for not being able to dispatch student loans in bankruptcy. He was the senator from MNBA, the credit card company locally in Delaware. So he always worked for these people, and one of their most cherished projects has always been the Israel Project. So he was the last person who was going to take a stand on this subject. But yeah, when you had spokesperson after spokesperson coming out and saying, we're deeply concerned about this, it's very simple to assess the truth of that statement. Did Israel's actions stop? Because the premise that the United States did not have the power to end what Israel was doing at any given moment is absurd. It's absurd on the face of it. There's absolutely no way. So what does it mean when you come out and say, well, we're talking to them about it? You're obviously lying, because if you were really talking to them about it, it would stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if your position were what you said it was, which is we're trying for a ceasefire, which they only started lying about.
There's no trying when you're writing all the checks.
Right. There's no trying when you are writing all the checks. And first of all, they weren't talking about a ceasefire until campaign season. First half of 2024. Well, we don't think it's fair to. How can we ask Israel to implement a ceasefire under these circumstances? Even Bernie Sanders came out against a ceasefire. AIPAC clipped that for their X feed. You know, in the early days, he was saying we can't have a ceasefire yet. Once they started publicly telling people that they were working towards a ceasefire, by that point, surely they knew, according to this report, and it was fairly easy to deduce based on what we were getting at the time, they knew everything that we just read you here, which is that Netanyahu was sabotaging the ceasefire deals, which were, in essence, hostage deals, and that they were biding their time waiting for Donald Trump. Hey, why stop the war now when Donald Trump could be in office come January, and he's going to back us in everything we do, including lifting sanctions on murderous settlers in the West Bank. We're going to talk about Itamar Ben-Gvir on the Patreon show tomorrow. We'll have the clip up Thursday. We were going to cover it today, but we're running pretty long. So, you know, that's an example of, hey, what is in it for us? What is in it for us to stop fighting now? Why would we make a deal with you, right? Biden was incentivized not to really do anything, to be very passive. And so was Israel, because, hey, why should we take what they're going to offer us when we can get Miriam Adelson's bitch to deal with starting January.
Right.
Like, that was the dynamic, and they strung everybody along, making it sound like they were trying. And AOC is the guiltiest party in all of this because she was elected on a progressive platform. She's the one who tried to sheepdog as many progressives who were out in the streets protesting for Palestine. She just goes up there and just makes up, oh, yeah, she's working tirelessly for a ceasefire. It's not the most guilty party in the sense she wasn't the executive, but she was the most duplicitous because she actually made a proactive case for Biden and Harris on these grounds, knowing there was nothing behind it whatsoever.
Yeah, you know my theory. I know a lot of people say AOCIA, and maybe that's true. I don't think that Iron Dome vote moment was faked. I trace it back to that moment. There was a palpable change after that. They broke her. Like just observing her behavior. If you really went in there just as a CIA plant, there wouldn't be a moment like that on the House floor. And of course, if this is what you believe, you're going to say, well, yeah, that's what they want you to think. Yeah, I mean, I don't buy that, man. Whatever Pelosi said, whatever addresses of close relatives she whispered in her ear, whatever she said to her, she was never the same after that vote. She was never the same. Whatever they told her, like, listen, man, you could wind up in a ditch,
right.
or you could do a lot of good, if you just stay off certain topics or play ball on certain things. I don't know what they said to her, but after that, she made the decision. I think a lot of them, even who might be better intentioned. I mean, she was always a little shallow and superficial, but you look at some people like Tlaib and Omar, and they play along with Mama Bear and company too. And they don't want to. They don't want to. There's no way that they do not want to go in there and burn the place down. Why don't they? There's a reason. There's a reason. Yeah, I think there comes a point where you're told, you're shown a picture of Paul Wellstone's plane, and you're told, listen, that could be you, or hey, man, here and there you'll be able to open a community center, but you need to play ball.
Yeah, I mean, it always starts with bribes and ends in threats, and where it doesn't end in threats, it ends worse than threats. So yeah, I mean, I do think that is part of it because obviously, I mean, there's no other reason. We talked about this.
It doesn't make sense with some of these people,
right?
Yeah.
It can't be that every single person has a line they won't cross on this.
Right.
Chris Van Hollen, who went to El Salvador, he was talking sense on this issue as much as he could. He's a two-state solution guy because that's as far as you're allowed to go. Like you literally are not allowed to go any further than that. But there's even a difference between that and doing what she did. Going on that say, I agree with Nick 100%. That should follow her the rest of her career, that you went on stage and said she is working tirelessly for a ceasefire. The short-sightedness of it, aside from the dishonesty of it, what, you don't think stories like this are going to come out? Look at how many people resigned from the State Department, from the White House.
I mean, she'll if they push her, she'll throw them under the bus. She'll say they told her that.
Yeah, they told her that. Well, I mean, maybe there are people out there who believe that. There's a sucker born every minute. A lot of them end up Democratic voters. So, she's in a target-rich environment for suckers, obviously.
Yeah, their base will support whoever they're told to support.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to worry about that.
That is true. But I'm hoping this is the first of many because we know there are a lot of people who resigned in anger, and there are probably a lot more people. The concentric circle of people who wish they had resigned in principle is probably larger than the people who did.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's always a lot of people, what do they say? For every person who does something, there are 10 people who are thinking about doing something. Right? Just most people don't have the actual courage to act based on whatever conviction they have. So there's probably a lot of people who wrote it out to the end who are not even on the radar of the Biden team. They didn't, I never knew Nancy was upset with us. Well, what happens when they start talking? There's more that could come out about this, but this was a pretty damning start, which is why that went as viral as it did. All right. What do we got here? We got Nicholas Quiros says that the current immigration czar was an Obama hire. Thank you. Kuznetsky Bassane, I meant impeach President Musk. There, it's still almost a democracy. There you go. Billionaire Lives Matter is AOC Bill Belichick's chick. Yeah, that's funny. That's a good one. Rocks 499 says, new fan, y'all never miss. Well, thank you, Rocks. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Very much. Hillary Hinton says, modern rebellion is a lifestyle choice, an aesthetic, a playlist, a hoodie, a market niche. It's the simultaneous monetization and dead ending of anger. Hopefully I'm wrong. End times or bust. Thank you, Hillary Hinton, very, very much for that. All right, folks, that is our program. We thank you very much for being here. Tomorrow, we got a good patron show for you. We are going to be talking about The Settlers, which is the new BBC documentary that's viral now. We do have a segment on Medea Benjamin versus Itamar Ben-Gvir, and more exciting stuff, plus your call. So if you are not a member, you could become a member by going to patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com, or you can join our locals as DoDissidents.locals.com. If you join, then we'll see you tomorrow. We got a live stream tomorrow for the cool kids, the people who kick in $5 a month and who make this show possible. So please, if you can do that, that is by far the best way to support this project. Thank you very much for being here this afternoon, everybody. Pleasure as always. Patrons, we'll see you tomorrow, 8 Eastern. Everybody else, we'll see you back here Thursday at noon Eastern time. Until we see you again, thanks very much again for today. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.